Chapter 803. Chapter 70, Too Soft-Hearted or Too Vicious. Chu Yang had countless ways to retreat from Chu Feilong's coercion. If he couldn't do it, he could just swallow his anger. Even if he gave up the purple crystals Huichen Hall, he was still the young master of the Chu clan. But Chu Yang's coercion towards Chu Feilong had pushed him to the limit. He had forced him to the brink of death. Did you think that I wouldn't let the law enforcement officers take action just because you used the clan to pressure me and keep the clan's internal affairs under control? Not only would I let them take action, but I would also launch an unexpected counterattack. I would force you to apologize to me, lower your head and beg me in front of everyone. I would force you to kill your 3 most capable subordinates in front of everyone. I would force you to split up your own people. I would force you to give up more than half of your years of hard work in an instant. Furthermore, you would lose your prestige in the clan. Otherwise, you would have to wait to collect your son's corpse. Not only would I force you, but I would also anger you to death. I would act obedient in front of you, and you wouldn't be able to do anything about it. I would be arrogant and despotic in front of you, but you wouldn't dare to lose your temper. Such unreasonable and hooligan methods were actually executed in a way that didn't have the slightest bit of anger. In just a few moments the enemy was defeated. And you would be confused all the way till your death. How could he have such power? The Chu clan had occupied the flat mountain ridge for more than 1,000 years, but they didn't have such power to command the law enforcement officers. But Chu Yang had only been here for a month and he had changed the entire flat mountain ridge. How did he do it? This was a mystery. Looking at Chu Yang's figure, everyone was deep in thought. Was the Chu clan going to change again? Over the years the Chu clan had already changed once. That was when Chu Feilong's son disappeared, and Chu Feilong took advantage of the situation to rise up. Now that Chu Feilong's son had returned, it seemed that everything was going back to the original track. Especially those who were originally following Chu Feilong, but were lucky not to be implicated by Chu Yang, they were even more perturbed. They felt as if their heads were no longer on their necks. This time it was the 3 of them. Who would it be next time? Everyone could tell that Chu Feilong only had 2 choices now that things had developed to this stage. The first option was to give up the struggle for power in the clan, and focus on being the second master of the Chu clan. The second option was to fight to the death with Chu Yang, and not stop until one of them was dead. However, Chu Feilong had been in power for so many years. Would he be willing to give up? The answer was almost impossible. However, would he be able to defeat Chu Yang if he continued to fight? Everyone felt a chill run down their spines as they recalled Chu Yang's methods. If Chu Feilong were to continue fighting with Chu Yang, this was something that everyone was not optimistic about. Seeing Chu Feilong lying on the ground, everyone had a complicated look on their faces. After a long while, Chu Feilong finally stood up slowly. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and said plainly, "Today's matter is really unexpected." He turned his head and looked at Chu Feilong. His face was cold and stiff, and his eyes were expressionless. After a long while, he said in a low voice, "Big brother, your son is really not bad." Chu Feilong smiled and said, "Although Yang is young and a little willful, he's still a good kid overall." Chu Feilong sighed deeply and said, "Yes. Yang is scheming and resourceful. However, it's a pity that his cultivation has been destroyed. Otherwise, with such a young master in the Chu clan, our future is really limitless." He sighed and walked out. This sentence made the hearts of everyone in the hall beat violently. No matter what kind of backing Chu Yang had, the fact that his cultivation was crippled was an irreparable wound. How could the future successor of a big clan be a scholar? Yang Rulan pushed Chu Feilong. Chu Feilong said blankly, "What are you doing? Get out." Yang Rulan sighed and dragged Chu Feilong out. If this old man was half as scheming as Chu Yang, he would have long beaten Chu Feilong into the abyss. Before Chu Yang left, he winked 3 times at Yang Rulan, indicating that Chu Feilong would definitely lay his hands on the family members of these 3 people. Finally, he glanced at Chu Feilong, indicating that he wanted his father to save them. This was a great opportunity to win over people's hearts. "Everyone, let's disperse." Seeing that the 2 of them had left, old Master Chu Xiongqing also stood up. He put his hands behind his back and walked back to the inner hall. His heart was filled with both joy and worry. It was actually extremely complicated. As he walked, he finally sighed and muttered to himself, "I hope that Feilong can understand Yang's sincerity and stop stirring up trouble. Then I can really smile." Chu Feiyan returned to the purple crystals Huichen Hall and realized that Lur was lying on the recliner in the courtyard. Her little feet swayed back and forth, causing the recliner to sway back and forth. Her little body undulated on the recliner, and she seemed to be enjoying herself. "Fourth uncle, you're back? How's the matter?" Little Loli asked with concern. "It's hard to explain. Things have actually developed to this stage." Chu Feiyin frowned and recounted everything that had happened in the hall in detail. He frowned and sighed. "Sai Yang, this child? This time he's gone overboard again, but it's also full of painstaking efforts." "Overboard? Full of painstaking efforts?" Chu Lur frowned her thin eyebrows and looked at Chu Feiyin strangely. "Fourth uncle, why do you think so?" Chu Feiyin was stunned and said, "This time, Yang made use of the law enforcement officer's power to capture Tinghu and Tingjiao indiscriminately. Isn't that overboard? He forced your second uncle to retreat in front of everyone and almost caused your second uncle to vomit blood and die. He even forced your second uncle to kill his own subordinates, causing their blood to splash in the hall. Isn't that overboard?" Chu Feiyin said, "But his purpose of doing so is to weaken your second uncle's wings. At the same time, he's giving your second uncle a chance to take a breather and reflect on his mistakes. But it's all for the sake of the clan, your grandfather, and our family. Isn't it a painstaking effort?" Chu Feiyin said, "Although Yang seems to be ruthless, in fact he's too soft-hearted. But this is a very good thing." "Big brother, you're too soft-hearted?" Chu Lur looked at Chu Feiyin strangely and finally couldn't help but laugh. "Fourth uncle, so this is what you think? I have to say you've really surprised me." Chu Feiyin scratched his head and said confusedly, "Isn't this what you think? Then what do you think?" Chu Lur thought for a while and finally said, "Big brother is going to kill them." Chu Feiyin was shocked and his eyes widened. "Kill? If I didn't guess wrongly, yes." Chu Lur thought quickly and said, "And fourth uncle, it's not that big brother is too soft-hearted, but..." Chu Lur thought for a long time and couldn't think of a good adjective, so she could only say, "It's that his heart is as calm as ice and snow. In the eyes of the people he cares about, ice and snow are infinitely beautiful and pure, but in the eyes of his enemies, ice and snow are ruthless and cold. Unfortunately, second uncle belongs to the latter." Chu Feiyin widened his eyes and thought for a long time, but still shook his head. "I still don't understand." Chu Lur sighed and black lines appeared on her brows. She said somewhat helplessly, "In this case, Big brother has forced second uncle to the point where he has no choice but to let go, and at the same time he has also forced both parties to the point where they are at each other's throats. I don't understand, fourth uncle, why do you only think positively? Don't think negatively? You must know that in this world, the development of everything is often very different from the good plan. As long as the ugly side of human nature raises its head, the good side of human nature can't be suppressed no matter what." Chu Feiyin said perplexedly, "This? I know, but what does this have to do with anything?" Chu Lur held her head and moaned, "Fourth uncle, do you think that second uncle has put in a lot of effort to make his reputation and prestige in the clan far surpass eldest uncles, and even grandpas? After so many years, will he get used to such a life?" "Of course." Chu Feiyin blurted out. "Yes, if someone appears at this time and shatters all his plans, do you think he'll be grateful to that person for giving him a chance to stop? Or will he hate him so much that he won't stop until he's dead?" Chu Lur continued to ask. "Of course he won't stop until he's dead." Chu Feiyin immediately realized after blurting out these words, and sweat appeared on his forehead. "Isn't this the end of it?" Chu Lur raised her delicate eyebrows. "This is what big brother means because he's already seen through second uncle." Chu Feiyin was dumbfounded. This time, big brother unreasonably colluded with the law enforcement officers and captured Tinghu and Tingjiao. If he didn't let go of them, he could have used such an unreasonable method to completely defeat second uncle, or even kill him. Since the law enforcement officers could help him unreasonably kill Xiao Yulong and capture Chu Feilong, they could also help him unreasonably kill Chu Feilong. I firmly believe in this point. Because second uncle's status can't be compared to Xiao Yulong's influence. If Xiao Yulong could be killed, what about second uncle? Chu Lur analyzed methodically. Chu Feiyin nodded and said, "Then why doesn't he just get rid of him once and for all?" "Of course not now." Chu Lur smiled faintly and stretched out an almost transparent finger, saying, "Firstly, big brother has just returned to the clan and doesn't understand all the clan affairs. Now, all the clan affairs are in the hands of second uncle. If second uncle dies at this time, the Chu clan will definitely be in a mess. So big brother can't take the risk. So he can only divide the clan first. After second uncle's power has been broken and scattered, it'll be the best time for him to take action. Secondly, second uncle is only dealing with big brother now, and he hasn't dealt with anyone else. If Big Brother kills, it'll appear that he's cold-hearted and intolerant. Moreover, Big Brother is a junior after all and he still has to bear the crime of killing his own relatives. He'll give others the impression that he's ruthless and heartless. If he wants to make a name for himself, this will be a fatal wound. Thirdly, if second uncle dies at this time, grandfather and eldest uncle will definitely feel guilty and upset for the rest of their lives. After all, second uncle didn't do anything that's obviously outrageous. Big Brother is also worried about this point. Chapter 804. Fourthly, Big Brother had already predicted that second uncle wouldn't give up just like that. So, although it seemed that Big Brother had given second uncle a chance to repent, in fact that wasn't the case. If second uncle were to do anything or frame Big Brother in the future, Big Brother wouldn't be able to do anything if he was caught by Big Brother. Moreover, the pain in the hearts of first uncle and grandfather would also be reduced. They had already given you a chance. Why are you so stubborn? Or, if you continue to be so stubborn, how long are you going to make trouble? At that time, it might be the time of second uncle's death. And you won't be able to attract much sympathy. Today you killed your closest subordinate and tomorrow you'll harm your own nephew. What's the point of such a person living? At that time, Big Brother wouldn't be a heartless person, but would instead be a person who values friendship and righteousness. Wouldn't it be enough to prove this by sparing him time and time again and giving him a chance? When that time came, Big Brother's reputation in the clan would definitely surpass second uncle's in his prime. For someone who wanted to kill him, he still cared about their feelings and couldn't bear to do it. How could such a person not be sincerely trusted? The unity of the clan would then be formed. Chulur looked at Chu Fian and smiled quietly. She said, "Fourth uncle, you're an honest person. Let me advise you, not to think too much about this matter." Chu Fian widened his eyes. He could only hear cold sweat dripping down his body. His heart was filled with endless fear. At this moment he truly understood what it meant to be a political scheme. Chulur's layers of analysis had shattered the beautiful fantasy in Chu Fian's heart. Reality was too cruel. Such cruelty made Chu Fian dumbstruck. Fourth uncle, Big Brother, is a very good person. Chulur said, but Big Brother is also a very scary person. Chu Fian only felt his throat dry up. He asked, "What do you mean?" Chulur said, "Big Brother is a better person than the gods and Buddhas to those he cares about. He'll do whatever it takes to make these people happy and safe. But to his enemies he's also an extremely cruel, despicable, and unscrupulous person. He will use all the noble and despicable methods he can think of to beat the enemy to the point of no return. In Big Brother's heart there is never a need to let go. So, as long as he starts to deal with someone he will not stop until that person is dead or until he himself is dead." Chu Fei Yin swallowed a few mouthfuls of saliva and said, "That makes sense." Nah. Chu Lur frowned, looking puzzled as she said, "But, fourth uncle, there's something I don't quite understand." Chu Fian closed his eyes and seemed to have guessed what she wanted to ask. He asked, "What? Why is the conflict so intense this time?" Chu Lur was really puzzled as she asked, "I don't understand this matter. Second uncle has been in charge of the clan for many years, and it's already become a habit. And I can tell that Big Brother isn't a person who's greedy for power, and neither is Big Uncle. If second uncle doesn't do these things, Big Brother and Big Uncle won't fight with him in the future. As for the others, fourth uncle, you're not interested in power. My father hasn't been at home for so many years and he can't get involved. Second uncle is also an absolutely smart person. Why did he make such a strong enemy for himself?" Chu Lur said puzzledly, "And I heard that it started from the day Big Brother came back. It was second uncle who suggested breaking Big Brother's fingers to verify his identity? I don't understand this even more. As a younger brother, he should be very happy that his big brother's child, who has been missing for 18 years, has been found. Why did second uncle have such a reaction? And regarding the matter of seizing the purple crystals Huichen Hall, anyone with a discerning eye could tell that second uncle was behind it. Why did he do this? Fourth uncle, second uncle gives me a feeling that he won't be at ease as long as my big brother is around. I really don't understand." Chu Lur looked at Chu Fian. Chu Fian only felt that this pair of clear eyes were like two sharp arrows shooting at his face. For a moment the muscles on his face actually twitched a little. "I'm only guessing vaguely about this matter." Chu Fian said a little hesitantly, "I'm guessing that it might have something to do with your big brother's disappearance 18 years ago." Chu Lur suddenly gasped, "Fourth uncle, you're saying, sure." Chu Fian covered Chu Lur's small mouth and looked around saying, "I'm only guessing." Chu Lur whimpered and struggled out of his hand saying, But that's your second brother? If you don't have deep suspicions, how can you suspect him like this? Chu Fian's face turned ugly. He wasn't the only one who had such guesses about what had happened back then. Old Master Chu also had the same guesses. But everyone had a tacit understanding and didn't say anything. Not many people knew that Chu Feiling had accompanied his wife back to her parents' home. And Chu Feilong's actions back then were far less stable than now. Most importantly, if anything happened to Chu Feiling, Chu Feilong would be the one who would benefit the most. But so what if he knew? So what if he suspected? He couldn't possibly not only lose his grandson, but also execute his son at that time, causing the entire Chu clan to fall apart, right? So there's such a reason. No wonder. Chu Lur muttered, if that's the case then, not only does second uncle intend to deal with big brother, but big brother also has the intention to deal with second uncle. This means that big brother already knows about this matter. Because when he just woke up he gave second uncle a show of strength. This isn't something that uncle and nephew would do after a long separation. Chu Fian thought for a while and couldn't help but feel terrified. Chu Lur's words hit the nail on the head. Yes, this matter was very obvious. Chu Feilong dealing with Chu Yang didn't seem like something that uncle and nephew would do. But Chu Yang's reaction was definitely not like that of an uncle and nephew reuniting after a long separation. But everyone was thinking that Chu Yang had no choice but to retaliate. But even if he had no choice, how could a nephew who had just returned be so ruthless to his second uncle? So many people's understanding couldn't be as clear as a little girl's. Chu Fian was extremely ashamed. If that's the case, then I'm afraid that big brother and second uncle will have to fight to the death sooner or later. Chu Lur's little face became worried. Chu Fian lowered his head sadly. He only felt as if his heart was being pressed by a huge rock. The words brothers fighting against each other flooded his heart, making him so heavy that he couldn't breathe. Fourth uncle, if big brother and second uncle really fight to the death, which side will you stand on? Chu Lur tilted her head slightly and looked at Chu Fian. There was a meaningful look on her young face. Which side will I stand on? Chu Fian was at a loss. On one side was his second brother, who had the same mother as him. On the other side was his nephew whom he admired the most and respected, the son of his big brother. Which side can I stand on? Chu Fian was dumbfounded. After a long while he said dryly, if that really happens, I might as well die first. Even if I die, I don't want to see the scene of brothers fighting against each other. But, even if you die, that scene is unavoidable. Chu Lur's clear eyes looked at Chu Fian. She was actually a little aggressive. Then whose side will you stand on? Chu Fian asked. Me. Chu Lur smiled. In terms of benefits, second uncle once embezzled the purple crystals that he used to buy medicine for me, but big brother cured my illness. Chu Fian was stupefied. From a personal point of view, apart from my father and mother, even my two brothers kept a respectful distance from me since I was young. Second uncle has never hugged me since I was old enough to understand things, but big brother often hugged me in his arms. The way second uncle looked at me was like looking at a bottomless pit that couldn't be filled with money. But when big brother looked at me, his eyes were as warm and affectionate as my father's. It made me indulge in it and feel dependent and happy. Chu Lur turned her head and said softly, Fourth uncle, guess which side I'll stand on? Chu Fian didn't need to guess because the answer was already there. If big brother wants to go up the mountain of swords, I'll go up with him. If big brother wants to be a bandit, I'll cut down the trees and block the way for him. If big brother becomes a devil, then I'll definitely become a witch. Chu Lur smiled. This has nothing to do with gratitude and has nothing to do with our relationship as siblings. It has nothing to do with my illness. It's because big brother is the only person other than my parents who is genuinely good to me. Fourth uncle, you're also very good to me, but you have misgivings. Big brother treats me well without any misgivings. So I also have no misgivings when I'm good to him. Chu Fian's face turned red and then white. He stood there in disappointment and was speechless for a long time. He only felt that the wind that blew past his face had a tinge of bleak autumn. It was autumn. That afternoon Chu Yang still hadn't returned. Chu Feilong finally couldn't take it anymore. He knew that Chu Yang was waiting for his news. If he didn't kill the family members of those three people, Chu Yang probably wouldn't bring his son back. Under the urging of his wife, Chu Feilong drank 3 bowls of hard liquor in a row with red eyes. Then he picked up his big knife and went out. But when he was about to kill them, Chu Feiling, coincidentally, saw him. He saved the innocent family members of those 3 people from Chu Feilong's knife. Chu Feilong was almost mad with anger. Because of one sentence from Chu Feiling, the whole thing became out of control. Second brother, you've already killed the 3 of them. Do you really want to kill all of them? This sentence was taught to Chu Feiling by Yang Rulan. She even gave him a death order. If he didn't say it, he could forget about getting into bed with her in the future. She knew that with Chu Feiling's honest and affectionate personality, he wouldn't do or say such things unless he was forced to a certain extent. Chapter 805. When Chu Yang came back, he brought back Chu Tinghu and Chu Tingjiao. The look in everyone's eyes changed when they saw the 2 men return with bruises all over their bodies. Young master really has the ability to make law enforcement officers lower their heads. Of course, as usual, Chu Yang complained about how he threatened them with death, how he begged them, how he was willing to sacrifice himself for them, and so on. All in all, young Master Chu went through a lot of hardships and went through 18 levels of hell before he managed to save his 2 dear younger brothers. The Chu clansmen all scoffed at these words. This guy is addicted to taking advantage of others. Chu Yang personally sent the 2 brothers to Chu Feilong's courtyard. Of course, as usual, he complained about his hardships again. Before he left, he even said to Chu Feilong, "Second uncle, if the 2 younger brothers have nowhere else to go, they can continue to be shopkeepers in the Purple Crystals Huichen Hall. Let's work together to build a famous Purple Crystals Huichen Hall." Chu Feilong gritted his teeth and said, "Thank you for your care." Chu Yang smiled from ear to ear. "Second uncle, what are you talking about? We're a family." Chu Feilong's face turned black on the spot. Divine Dr. Chu returned to the Purple Crystals Huichen Hall and continued to work. Of course, the business continued to improve. Then good news came one after another like snowflakes. Chu Yang was so happy in his heart that he almost wanted to sing a song. In the big clans, the Shao clan and Li clan had already started a war. All the businesses of the Li clan were banned in the Shao clan's territory. Friction between the 2 clans kept happening. It was said that there were already casualties on both sides. Gradually, the situation escalated to the point of a big fight. The 7th master of the Zhuge clan, Zhuge Yunwu, led the army and gradually advanced from the southernmost part of the continent, oppressing the Li clan. At the same time, the Shi clan started to take action. The Ling clan also started to take action secretly. The latest chapter of the Holy Hall. The clans took action immediately. Except for the Yi clan and a few other clans, a storm was brewing in the entire continent. The law enforcement officers sat on the mountain and watched the tigers fight. This was one of the good news. The second good news was that the elixirs that Sha Xinliang and Qin Baoshan needed would arrive in another 3 days. This made Sha Xinliang and Qin Baoshan very excited. Of course, Divine Dr. Chu was even more excited. The third piece of good news was that the news that 4th Elder Chu had sent to the Bloodpayers Hall had basically all been received. Moreover, the whereabouts of the flower in the place where the poison was planted had been found. As for the other flavors, it was expected that they would recover in a short period of time. This news made Chu Yang heave a long sigh of relief. However, it was said that the flower was found by the famous Bloodpayers organization, Jinjian Hall. Although the whereabouts of the flower were known, it would take another month for the other party to send it over. Moreover, the price offered was even more outrageous. Looking at the high prices, Divine Dr. Chu felt that he was earning money too slowly. Just 1 flower and 1 medicinal herb cost 30,000 purple crystals. Divine Dr. Chu had worked so hard for such a long time, but he only managed to save a little more than 10,000 purple crystals. This made Chu Yang gnash his teeth in anger. This damn Jinjian Hall, is this king of hell a fat pig to be slaughtered? He finally understood. In this world, even if you want to kill someone, you still need money. Such a strong poison could actually be sold at a high price of 30,000 purple crystals. This really makes me speechless. Divine Dr. Chu gnashed his teeth and scolded the black-hearted Bloodpayers and the Bloodpayers Hall. At the same time, his eyes lit up and his heart moved. Being a Bloodpayer seems to earn money very quickly. If I can take on 5 such missions a year, I won't have to do anything else. There was another piece of good news. The law enforcement master of the Southeast region, the head of the law enforcement organization, was on his way here. Firstly, it was because the Southeast region was in a bigger mess. Secondly, the Southeast region's Shao clan, the Northwest region's Shi clan and the Li clan were in a bigger mess here. Thirdly, it was because Sha Xinliang urged him every few days. The law enforcement master really didn't understand what had happened to his right-hand man, so he had to come over to take a look. Net 7 *. During this period of time, the Shao clan had also started to deploy troops from various big and small clans in the entire Southeast region. Waves after waves of troops were sent to the front line where the war had yet to start. Fortunately, the flat mountain ridge was located in a remote area, and it wasn't their turn yet. But the 3 big clans had already started to panic. Chu Yang was looking forward to it. After all, King of Hell Chu was still thinking about the 5th fragment of the sword. Thinking of this, the King of Hell Chu sighed again. My memory is only up to the 5th fragment. As for where the remaining 4 fragments are, it's like looking for a needle in a haystack. While Divine Dr. Chu was treating patients and collecting purple crystals, he would stroll to the Blood Payers Hall to take a look at the rewards and missions there when he was free. Then he would shake his head and return to the Purple Crystals Huichen Hall like a defeated rooster. He was speechless for a long time. The weakest reward for killing people was actually an 8th-stage martial monarch. The price wasn't low. As long as the head was brought back, the reward would be 2,000 purple crystals. Moreover, the Blood Payers didn't care about the handling fees and other miscellaneous things, but Minister Chu could only look at the ocean and sigh. I thought that I had found a source of income, but an 8th-stage martial monarch is really too much of a scam. Even if I recover my strength, I'll only be a 1st or 2nd-stage martial emperor. If I go, I'll only be giving food to this one-legged thief, right? If the sword spirit were to do it, of course it wouldn't be a problem. But if I were to ask the sword spirit to do it after I've recovered my cultivation, how would that be appropriate? When would he be able to truly improve his strength? And it's only 2,000 purple crystals. So little. It turns out that to be a blood payer, one also needs to have super strong strength. Sighing was one thing, but Minister Chu still paid 100 purple crystals and took back a copy of all the rewards for blood payers. When he was free, he would take it as a science lesson. After all, the rewards were all ferocious guys. If he met them, it was one thing if he couldn't defeat them, but if he could recognize them and run away in time, it would be worth the price of the information. And if he was lucky, he might meet a half-dead guy and chop off his head to earn purple crystals. Yes, Chu Yang was really daydreaming. I've always been prepared for a rainy day. During this period of time, Chu Feilong didn't do anything. After all, he was forced too hard that day and his vitality was greatly damaged. He had to stay at home to recuperate. But Chu Yang noticed that Chu Feilong's skinny and shriveled confidant was no longer by his side. Chu Yang didn't know where he went. That person was an expert that Chu Feilong recruited from outside. It was said that he was at the peak of the martial monarch level and close to the martial saint level. Chu Yang had always been doubtful about this. What's Chu Feilong's cultivation? How could he recruit such an expert? Why? Although he knew that the other party didn't go missing to assassinate him, Chu Yang still strengthened his vigilance. If he wasn't wrong, Chu Feilong should have sent him out to ask for help, or he had to guard against him. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. On this day, Sha Xinliang and Qin Baoshan sent people to invite Divine Dr. Chu to the law enforcement hall with smiles on their faces. They said that they wanted to invite Divine Dr. Chu to have a meal, make a house call and check on the condition of their family members. Divine Dr. Chu understood tacitly. He said a few words, took a medicine furnace and left. When he saw Sha Xinliang and Qin Baoshan, Divine Dr. Chu naturally asked excitedly, "You're here?" "We're here." The two beamed with joy. "That's great." Divine Dr. Chu beamed with joy. Congratulations to the two brothers. Now that the medicine had arrived, the chronic illness of the two brothers could finally be completely cured. "I'm absolutely sure about this." The two beamed with joy at once. "I've brought the medicine furnace." "Where's the medicine?" Chu Yang asked enthusiastically. "It's in the underground secret warehouse," Sha Xinliang laughed. "Let's go." The three of them opened the secret passage and went down in a single file. Seeing the medicinal herbs, Chu Yang couldn't help but praise. Even the sword spirit in the space of tribulation also praised. The quality of the medicinal herbs was really good in the upper 3 heavens. And they were well preserved. Not a bit of medicinal efficacy was lost. It was enough to show that they were all experts. "My two brothers, you have to protect me while I cultivate. Wait outside the door. Remember, no matter what happens, don't let anyone in." Chu Yang said solemnly, "If I'm distracted, all my previous efforts will be wasted." The two nodded solemnly. "We naturally know about this. Then we'll have to trouble you." Chu Yang nodded and reminded them again, "This refining process will take 2 to 3 days. Brothers, don't be anxious. Just prepare some food and water for me. No matter what movements I make inside, as long as I don't open the door, don't open the door. Once the medicinal efficacy is lost, you'll be finished. Remember." The two looked nervous and nodded repeatedly. Sha Xinliang went out like a gust of wind and came back with a big bag of food and 7 to 8 bags of water. Chu Yang took over these things and entered the secret chamber. With a bang, he shut the two of them outside. Sha Xinliang and Qin Baoshan looked at each other and saw the joy in each other's eyes. "Heavens, I finally have hope." If the two of them knew that they were originally very hopeful, and that all the hopelessness was caused by the enthusiastic and busy divine Dr. Chu inside, cough cough cough, after Chu Yang went in, he waved his hand and dozens of medicinal herbs on the ground entered the space. He said to the sword spirit, "Hurry up and refine the medicine. You know better than me what kind of medicine I need." As for the jade Ganoderma and heavenly jade mystical liquid, they were of course carefully hidden by the sword spirit. "I didn't expect such a big piece. It seems that there'll still be more than half of it left after Chu Lure's illness is cured. This is really great." In the space the sword spirit rolled his eyes. He didn't dare to delay and hurriedly started to refine the medicine. One must know that Minister Chu was extremely dissatisfied with the fact that he didn't have any cultivation. It's better for him to recover his cultivation quickly. Besides, to recover his cultivation he needed to go into seclusion. And for seclusion he needed an absolutely safe place. And in the entire flat mountain ridge, was there any safer place than the law enforcement officer's secret warehouse? Not to mention that there were two great experts guarding outside the door. Chapter 806. Chu Yang had long made up his mind to recover his cultivation here. He wanted to completely calm down his spirit and digest the soul of the first tribulation sword master who almost brought him to hell. He wanted to turn the soul into his own strength. And he couldn't wait to do it. While the sword spirit was busy, Chu Yang didn't stay idle. He only used an hour to make a pile of black refined medicine. These were prepared for Sha Xinliang and Qin Baoshan. The latest chapter of the Holy Hall. Chu Yang could easily solve the two's injuries and the so-called chronic illness. But Chu Yang was a little worried that Qin Baoshan could use this opportunity to advance his cultivation because of the jade clover Ganoderma. After thinking for a long time, he finally asked the sword spirit to refine a medicine that could increase his cultivation by 20 years. The sword spirit's actions were very fast. In less than 2 hours, the medicine that Chu Yang needed was already refined. Under the sword spirit's superb refining skills, this lump of medicinal liquid showed an amber-like purple color. It was so clear that it seemed to be able to reflect the stars in the sky. It was half solid and half liquid, and emitted a tempting fragrance. Sha Xinliang and Qin Baoshan, who were waiting outside the door, couldn't help but frown when they smelled the strong fragrance of the medicine. They were overjoyed. "This speed is really fast. The fragrance has spread out so quickly." Chu Yang opened his mouth and swallowed this lump of medicinal liquid without any hesitation. After only a quarter of an hour, the medicinal effect began to explode in his body. Then it was as if he had swallowed a burning furnace. His entire body turned red with a whoosh close to a purplish black. Countless beads of sweat emerged from his head and body. In his meridians, the power of the tribulation sword was activated at the same time. In his meridians, the cultivation that had been cut off began to roll and shake. It moved slowly along the original route, gradually moving faster and faster. In the end it started to gallop like a wild horse. The power of the tribulation sword in his meridians turned around and joined this mighty torrent. In his dantian his origin energy surged. When the torrent passed through his dantian again, he joined in without hesitation. The three parties joined forces, and circulated a cycle in Chu Yang's meridians at lightning speed. Then they suddenly changed their course and pushed Chu Yang's cultivation to the first grade of Emperor level at an earth-shattering speed. It seemed as if the barrier between the first grade of Emperor level and the King level didn't exist at all. Then it continued to increase and gradually reached the peak of first grade Emperor level. Then it didn't stop at all and crashed into the meridian barrier between first and second grade with a loud bang. With just one collision, a hole was opened in the barrier. Then, with a thought from Chu Yang, the torrent-like energy flow rampaged through the barrier. Net. It condensed and condensed in the meridians, and when all the energy surged in, it also condensed and took shape. It actually took the shape of a sword. Sword Emperor. Chu Yang's body suddenly emitted a sharp sword aura. The secret chamber was filled with sword aura. The sword-like energy flow was activated again. The sword tip of the Calamity sword whistled happily and occupied the position of the sword tip. The sword edge, sword blade, and sword guard all returned to their positions at the same time. The long sword in the meridian slowly turned transparent black. Only the tip of the sword emitted a silver light. In the Calamity space, the sword spirit looked at all of this quietly inside. It's really different from the previous 8 masters of the Calamity sword. This should be the highest form of the Calamity sword, everywhere. The sword in the meridians trembled slightly, and then began to move slowly, faster and faster. In the end, it actually turned into a shadow. It seemed to be the same as before, but it was fundamentally different. The long sword moved through the meridians at an astonishing speed. Every time it made a round, it grew a little bigger. After 10 rounds, the sword tip took the initiative to change its direction again, and rushed to another meridian barrier. Boom. Chu Yang clearly heard the sound of a mountain collapsing at this moment, and the world collapsing at this moment. His whole body trembled, and blood spurted out of his 7 apertures at the same time. However, after that, it was completely comfortable, completely unobstructed. 3rd grade Sword Emperor. Before he had time to be surprised, there was another silent explosion in his head. Chu Yang spurted out blood again. Then, waves of unfamiliar information and data flowed into his mind quickly and clearly like a clear stream, entering his heart. Those were the complete memories of the first master of the Calamity Sword. Chu Yang was stiff on the ground like a dead person, but his brain was absorbing these precious memories hungrily. Inside there was a legend that dominated the heavens. Every detail was recorded. All the wonderful techniques that he had never seen or heard of before swarmed into Chu Yang's mind at this moment, and were gradually organized and categorized. What Chu Yang was most interested in was that there was a technique called Thousand Phantom Technique. Not only could it change his appearance and figure at will, but it could also perfectly conceal the fluctuations of his aura. If you want others to know what cultivation level you are at, the Thousand Phantom Technique will display a certain level of chi activity according to your wishes. This kind of technique made Chu Yang very interested. The sword energy in the meridians was still moving violently. Chu Yang had already lost his consciousness and could only accept it passively. His only obsession now was to charge, break through the barrier, improve his strength. If he was still conscious and could look inside himself, he would find that his meridians were slowly swelling and widening, with strong flexibility. The power of the golden blood root that he had eaten in Beyond the Heavens sect was fully developed at this moment. As his meridians widened, the shape of the sword gradually became stronger and stronger, and its speed became faster and faster. It became more and more urgent. Chu Yang gritted his teeth, and commanded the sword energy in his meridians with his mind. He roared in his heart, "Break!" Finally, the sword hit the meridian's barrier again. Boom. Chu Yang's body suddenly shook again, and blood spurted out of his 7 orifices again. All the pores on his body also spurted out fine blood like a drizzle. It did not break open. The sword in his meridians retreated. It followed the previous path again, and after another 10 circulations, it hit the barrier again without hesitation. Again. Chu Yang suddenly closed his eyes. Boom. The barrier did not move, and it was as firm as a rock. Chu Yang's body trembled violently on the ground, and his whole body bounced up 3 feet from the ground and fell down again. There was already a pool of blood below him. The sword retreated, and it went on the original path again and again. It did not stop at the 10th time. After 300 circulations, Chu Yang once again launched an attack. If he broke through, he would be a 4th stage sword sovereign. 3rd stage and 4th stage were 2 completely different realms. He attacked again. The absolutely brutal attack caused Chu Yang's meridians to crack a little, but the barrier still did not move at all. The power of the elixirs in his body automatically repaired his meridians, and then the sword energy began to move again. The 5th time, the 7th time, the 9th time. The sword spirit opened his eyes wide and his face was full of disbelief. This experience was definitely better than the torture of death by 1,000 cuts. Even an expert would give up and wait for the next opportunity if he could not break through once. But Chu Yang endured this pain again and again, and he attacked 15 times in a row. The sword spirit followed the tribulation sword and went through 8 tribulation sword masters, but he had never seen any tribulation sword master with such ruthlessness and tenacity. Chu Yang was ruthless to his enemies, but he was even more ruthless to himself. On the 18th time, a crack finally appeared on the strong meridian barrier. It split radially in all directions. The 10th time, Chu Yang roared in his heart and he controlled the sword energy to hit it fiercely. Boom. He suddenly understood. The energy sword rushed in with a whoosh, sweeping away the original obscurity and becoming bright. Gradually the entire passage was opened up. Then the energy continued to roar and circulate for 10 cycles before it finally stopped and stabilized in the Dantian. 4th stage sword sovereign, primary stage. The moment Chu Yang broke through, he fainted and lay on the ground silently. The sword spirit looked at Chu Yang fainting on the ground, and couldn't help but ask himself a question. If Chu Yang didn't faint, would he continue to attack the 5th stage? After thinking for a long time, there was no answer. This was a complete lunatic. 2 days of time quietly flowed by. There was no movement in the secret chamber. Sha Xinliang and Qin Baoshan were like ants on a hot pan. But when they thought of Chu Yang's instructions, they didn't dare to go in and take a look. What's going on? I'm so anxious. In these 2 days the outside world was also restless. There seemed to be many outsiders entering the flat mountain ridge, and they disappeared after entering just like water droplets melting into the sea. In a tea house, in a quiet room, Chu Failong was tasting tea quietly, as if he was waiting for something. From time to time he raised his head and looked at the door. In his eyes, there was an unconcealable desire and a trace of nervousness. With a whoosh, a figure stood at the door. It was Chu Failong's skinny and shriveled monarch guard. Chu Failong, the 13th master, has come personally. The skinny and shriveled guard actually called out Chu Failong's name for the first time. This didn't seem like a guard talking to his master, but more like a master talking to his subordinate. Chu Failong didn't feel offended at all. Instead, he stood up in surprise. The 13th master has come personally? This is really... Let me go out and welcome him. No need. A gloomy voice sounded. As if it appeared out of thin air, 5 more people appeared at the door silently. The first person was a man who seemed to be in his 30s. His face was fair and clean, and he could even be said to be handsome. Only his eyes were gloomy and cold, which destroyed his temperament. His eyes seemed to be flickering with ghostly fire all the time. Yuubua. He was the 13th master of the Yi clan, which was ranked first in the heavens. People called him 13th Yi. If Chu Failing was here, he would definitely understand the reason for his misfortune and the assassination attempts of the Yi clan's martial emperors in the 3 heavens. The source was here. Chapter 807. Part 7, Chapter 83, Crisis. After listening to Chu Failong's words, Yi Wubo frowned tightly. A layer of frost could almost be scraped off from his face. Holy Hall, Chu Failong, you're not joking with me, right? Yi Wubo looked at Chu Failong maliciously. The ghost fire in his eyes flickered. You're saying that a kid who didn't return home for 18 years and doesn't have any foundation in the clan, a cripple whose cultivation has been abolished, has become the biggest obstacle to your plan? Do you think I'm a fool? Chu Failong sighed deeply and said helplessly, 13th Master, I know you don't believe me, but this is the truth. Yi Wubo frowned tightly. The ghost fire in his eyes flickered. After a long time he said, that kid is your nephew? Chu Yang? Chu Failong nodded and said, this kid is slippery and vicious. He doesn't even recognize his own kin. Yi Wubo smiled and said coldly, he's drifted outside for 18 years. It's normal that he doesn't recognize his own kin. I find such a person pleasing to the eye. Chu Failong smiled bitterly. What's his teacher's background? His past experience? Yi Wubo asked. Chu Failong shook his head. I don't know anything. But he doesn't seem to have been taught by a famous teacher. Even though his cultivation has been abolished, no one has stood up for him. This sentence was full of deep meaning. Yi Wubo raised the corner of his mouth and revealed a disdainful expression. He said, Chu Failong, I have high hopes for you. You should know that those who achieve great things shouldn't be bothered by trifles. Only a ruthless and decisive person can be called a hero of the generation. Chu Failong revealed a ruthless look and said, but it's a pity that I'm the center of attention in the Chu clan now. And that kid seems to be guarding against something and has been following my 4th brother around. It's not easy for me to kill him. Yi Wubo snorted. The ghost fire in his eyes flickered. After pondering for a while he said, Old Third Ma, go and find out the background of this Chu Yang. If it's convenient, kill him on the spot. It was obvious that he doubted Chu Failong's words. However, even if he doubted Chu Failong, he still had to see it with his own eyes, lest he wronged Chu Failong. After all, Chu Failong was a very important chess piece in his plan. Moreover, Old Third Ma was the weakest among the 4 guards he brought with him. He was only at the 3rd stage of the martial monarch realm, but he was quick-witted, observant, eloquent, and resourceful. When he was outside he didn't have to worry about anything. He was a rare assistant. Wang 7 asterisk, and Chu Yang was just an ordinary person whose cultivation had been crippled. Sending him out would definitely be a piece of cake. Behind him, the skinny Old Third Ma agreed and asked Chu Failong about Chu Yang's appearance in detail. Finally, he asked Chu Failong to draw a portrait of Chu Yang. It had to be said that Chu Failong's drawing skills were really good. He painted Chu Yang so vividly that it was almost as if he could walk out of the painting. Old Third Ma looked at it for a while and revealed a cruel smile. He rolled up the portrait and said confidently, 13th Master, don't worry. With a laugh he turned around and floated out of the door. Chu Feilong was a little worried and said, 13th Master, that little guy is very slippery. And I don't know how he got acquainted with Sha Xinliang. It's not very safe for old Third Ma to go. The ghostly fire in Yi Wubu's eyes flickered. He tapped the table lightly with his fingers and said lightly, I'm here to take charge of the southeast region. What I need are elite soldiers. If old Third Ma can't even deal with a cripple who has lost his cultivation, then what's the use of keeping him? As he spoke, his ghostly fire-like eyes seemed to sweep across Chu Feilong's face intentionally or unintentionally. His eyes were cold and malicious and a faint flame flickered. Chu Feilong's heart trembled and he didn't dare to speak again. This sentence was obviously a warning to him. Because he himself couldn't even deal with a cripple who had lost his cultivation. Chu Yang stayed in the secret warehouse for 3 days. On the 3rd day he was already practicing the Thousand Phantom technique. The damage to his meridians caused by breaking through these few days was already healed by him using a large amount of vitality spring water. But he needed a reason to recover his strength suddenly. And Chu Yang obviously didn't want to fabricate any reason. So, he simply used the Thousand Phantom technique to cover up his aura directly. With his current cultivation of a 4th stage sword sovereign, the speed of practicing this technique was indeed very fast. In just 1 day he was able to use it flexibly and reach the 3rd stage of the Thousand Phantom technique. Thousand Phantoms of Aura. Although he still couldn't change his cultivation level at will, he could already completely cover up his aura. The latest chapter of the Holy Hall. Sha Xinliang and Qin Baoshan had been waiting anxiously for a long time. In these 3 days they only had one feeling. Each day felt like a year. In the end, the 2 dignified monarch-level experts couldn't help but pray, but please refine the medicine. This is our only hope. Finally, when they saw the door open, the 2 of them couldn't wait and rushed in at the same time. Inside, the sound of heavy and slow footsteps could be heard. It was as if the person walking used up all the strength in his body with every step. Finally, the person moved towards the door. The 2 of them stretched their necks and looked around with their hearts in their throats. Finally, Chu Yang appeared. At the moment when they saw Chu Yang, the 2 of them were inexplicably shocked and couldn't help but feel distressed. The current Chu Yang was absolutely too horrible to look at. His clothes were ragged, his face was pale, and there were traces of blood at the corners of his mouth. His body was also stained with blood. His hair was disheveled, his eyes were lifeless, and his body was swaying. Every step he took, his legs would twitch as if they had no bones. He almost crawled to the door. The 2 of them looked at Chu Yang in shock and couldn't say anything for a while. Chu Yang's extremely tired eyes suddenly lit up when he saw the 2 of them. He revealed a comforting smile and murmured in a voice that was almost inaudible, "The medicine is done, finally." His body went soft and he was about to fall down. Qin Baoshan reacted quickly. He stepped forward and hugged Chu Yang. He called anxiously, little brother. Chu Yang weakly, forcibly opened his lifeless eyes. He said as if he would faint at any time, quick, take out the medicine, in my arms, or if I fall, I'll. Sha Xinliang hurriedly took out 3 bags of medicine from Chu Yang's arms and held them tightly in his arms. He asked with concern, little brother, it's been hard on you. Are you okay? Chu Yang finally fell into a semi-coma. His arms drooped down and he murmured, we take care of each other, for the 2 of you, it's worth it. After saying that, he really fainted. The 2 of them were so excited that their eyes were brimming with tears. What a good little brother. For the 2 of us, he had obviously sacrificed half of his life. He's so affectionate and righteous. He's so affectionate. He's so righteous. He's so. The 2 of them simply didn't know how to describe it. They carried Chu Yang carefully and rushed into Sha Xinliang's bedroom like a gust of wind. They carefully placed him on the bed. Chu Yang started to snore as soon as he was put down. He's really too tired. Qin Baoshan sighed with emotion. I really don't know how much hardship he's suffered and how much energy he's expended in these few days. It seems that refining medicine this time isn't easy. Sha Xinliang had the same feeling and said, I heard that thousands of years ago, some senior pharmacists would often exhaust their lives in order to concoct and refine medicines. Now I know that the rumors are actually true. Qin Baoshan nodded solemnly. Immediately, Sha Xinliang gave out a series of instructions. Use the best tonics, the best medicine, and the best doctors to quickly recover the little brother's body. Sha Xinliang's repeated instructions caused the entire law enforcement hall of the flat mountain ridge to be in chaos. When Chu Yang woke up, it was already night time. He seemed to have recovered quite a bit. He even opened his mouth to praise, "Which divine doctor treated me like this? I thought that I'd have to lie down for a few days. I didn't expect to recover so much in such a short time." Then he said gratefully, "It must be the two elder brothers who spent a lot of effort, right?" Xia Xinliang and Qin Baoshan felt honored and ashamed at once. They rubbed their hands and smiled. "As long as little brother is fine, we should do whatever we want." Chu Yang's eyes flashed and he seemed to be in deep thought. He smiled and said, "I'll remember it." The two of them smiled and nodded. Immediately Chu Yang took out the medicine. Without any delay, he carefully instructed the two of them on how to take the medicine, and what kind of reaction they would have after taking the medicine. He also instructed them to look for him when they had any reaction, and then he would treat them himself. When Chu Yang walked out of the law enforcement hall, it was already the next morning. Actually, Xia Xinliang and Qin Baoshan were completely fine in the middle of the night. Moreover, Qin Baoshan's cultivation had increased by 20 years, and he had finally broken through the bottleneck of the third stage of the martial monarch level. He had successfully advanced to the seventh stage of the martial monarch level. Chu Yang was also shocked by this advancement, because after Qin Baoshan's cultivation had broken through the bottleneck, the mighty airflow in his meridians flowed endlessly, and his cultivation had actually doubled. Chu Yang also finally knew why it would be more and more difficult for experts to advance when they had cultivated to a certain level. That's because the martial power would increase by several folds if he were to advance by one level. This was simply inconceivable for Chu Yang at his current level. Qin Baoshan's eyes were brimming with tears. His chronic illness was gone and he had advanced to the next level. This was something that he didn't even dare to dream of, but it had been realized by Chu Yang. At this moment, Qin Baoshan felt that whatever he did for his little brother was worth it. Like Xia Xinliang, whose chronic illness had also been cured, he didn't let Chu Yang go back no matter what when he saw that it was already late. He served divine Dr. Chu as if he was his ancestor, and stayed in the law enforcement hall for a night. Only in the morning did he send Chu Yang out respectfully. Chu Yang walked on the road in the early morning. He looked at the clear dewdrops on the weeds by the roadside and pondered. He had made use of these two people, and these two people weren't really good people. But as his contact with them deepened, he suddenly discovered a problem. No matter if they were good or bad people, but many of them were sexual lovers. At the very least, as a martial artist's persistence, as a human's brilliance, as a basic gratitude, Chu Yang didn't know what he was thinking about as he walked. He shook his head, smiled bitterly and quickened his pace. At this moment, his divine soul suddenly trembled. An extreme sense of crisis made Chu Yang's hair stand on end. He suddenly stopped his footsteps and still maintained his posture just now. He lowered his head and seemed to be in deep thought, but his divine sense spread out like an inescapable net. He couldn't understand some people's doubts. I can still update continuously when I'm traveling. Do I have to be lazy and ask for a leave of absence after I return home? Then what's the point of my persistence? 40 minutes after he called his editor to ask for a leave of absence, he received a call. He hurriedly wrote and uploaded his story. Then he saw the doubts. A brother from Shanghai said, "It's so strange. Why is there no power cut here? This reason is too lame." Then I was speechless for a long time. I could only say, I'm in the suburbs of a small town, not Shanghai. I'm poor and have no money to buy a house in Shanghai. I've also relaxed these few days. My monthly votes have also slipped out of the top 10. Tomorrow I can only start to work hard. Here, I sincerely ask for monthly votes and recommendation votes in advance. Chapter 808. Although Chu Yang was only a fourth-stage sword sovereign now, after he swallowed and integrated the divine soul of the first tribulation sword master, his divine soul and divine sense were truly the strongest in the world. His divine sense was like an inescapable net, silently gushing out for thousands of feet. Chu Yang closed his eyes, and it was as if he could see with his own eyes. On the top of a tall tower in the distance, a thin and small figure in white was floating on the top of the tower. In the early morning sky, he was like a formless ghost. Next, he seemed to be waiting and sizing up the gate of the law enforcement hall, but he didn't go near. At this moment, his eyes were looking in Chu Yang's direction. Although Chu Yang lowered his head, he only felt a sharp pain on his head, as if it was pierced by a sharp needle. Chu Yang was shocked. He could still feel the murderous intent from so far away. His eyes were still so sharp even though he was so far away. Then this person was at least a monarch-level expert. Chu Yang lowered his head and stayed where he was, like a sentimental teenager looking at a bunch of swaying wildflowers by the roadside. His eyes were focused and affectionate. But in his heart, a monstrous flame of war suddenly rose up. My strength has recovered. I'm now a fourth-stage sword sovereign. Compared to the other party, my strength is far from his. But I still don't know how powerful my attacks will be after this breakthrough. This person's arrival is a touchstone. Sharpening a knife will cause it to break, but not sharpening it will cause it to rust and break. The sword spirit didn't speak, nor did he give any suggestions. Since Chu Yang's cultivation recovered, the sword spirit knew that the fewer chances he had to fight in the future, the better. Only by allowing Chu Yang to overcome all the crises by himself could he grow rapidly. And the sword spirit's role was to turn the tide in a situation where there was no chance of survival. Chu Yang's battle intent rose, but he was as calm as ice. Although his battle strength had improved and his cultivation had broken through, he was still far from the other party. Saint Hall, even if he wanted to sharpen a knife, he couldn't seek his own death by sharpening it. He had to take some measures. The next moment, Chu Yang gently raised his head. There was a warm smile on his face. He looked like a young man who was enjoying the morning sunshine. His clothes fluttered as he took a step forward. He walked in another direction. This direction led to the outskirts of Wujin town. Along the way, the grass was lush, the wildflowers swayed, the morning breeze was mighty, and the clouds in the sky were illusory. Chu Yang walked and stopped like this. He clasped his hands behind his back, and looked at the green grass and yellow flowers on both sides. His eyebrows were relaxed and his eyes were gentle. It seemed as if he had an inexplicable melancholy of a teenager. It seemed as if he was reluctant to part with the beautiful morning light, and couldn't bear to disturb the sleeping flowers and trees. Without raising a speck of dust, he walked out of Wujin town. The moment he raised his head, old Third Ma, who was 1,000 feet away, unfolded a portrait with a swoosh. He took a quick glance at it. With just one glance, he was sure that this young man with a gentle and soothing face was his target today, the person he wanted to kill. Even a monarch-level expert wouldn't be able to discover me at such a distance. Not to mention a youth whose cultivation was completely crippled. Therefore, old Third Ma wasn't worried at all. Then old Third Ma's body flew towards Chu Yang like a ray of flowing light. Then he saw Chu Yang change his direction and walk out of the town. He couldn't help but hesitate. It was good to kill Chu Yang here, but the death of the young master of the Chu clan in Wujin town would definitely cause a fierce backlash from the Chu clan. Furthermore, Chu Failong was in a sensitive period now. This might hinder him. Hindering Chu Failong was equivalent to hindering 13th Master's plan. It was better to follow him and see where he went. Once it was slightly more remote, he could kill him and destroy the corpse. Wouldn't it be perfect? Therefore he slowed down and slowly followed from a distance. Although he was facing a crippled person without any cultivation, old Third Ma didn't dare to be careless. In this world, any accident could happen. This was what 13th Master often said. Old Third Ma didn't want any accidents to happen when he killed Chu Yang. He saw that Chu Yang was walking out of the town leisurely. He didn't seem to be on guard at all. Old Third Ma was overjoyed. You're courting death. Don't blame me. I didn't expect 13th Master's mission to be so easy to accomplish. Thinking till here, he couldn't help but despise Chu Failong from the bottom of his heart. To be forced into such a state by such a careless and immature person who doesn't even have the slightest bit of cultivation, this Chu Failong can be considered to have created a new precedent. He thought to himself, when I finish my mission, I must tell 13th Master. Chu Failong is mediocre and useless. The road in front of him gradually widened. Chu Yang's clothes fluttered in the wind. He walked leisurely and looked around quietly. Occasionally he bent down and sniffed the wild grass and flowers. Then a happy smile appeared on his face. It's too small. Old Third Ma curled his lips and followed Chu Yang from 200 to 300 feet away. However, he didn't realize that Chu Yang had taken 3 turns before he chose this path. The reason for that was because they were walking against the wind. The morning breeze brushed against his face. Every 10 steps, Chu Yang would bend down and sniff the wildflowers on his left. After another 10 steps, he would sniff the wild grass on his right. They were scattered left and right, seemingly without any pattern. But after he walked past them, if one paid attention, they would discover that every blade of grass that Chu Yang smelled was extending in the direction where he came from, straight to the heart of the road. Every petal that Chu Yang sniffed, the direction where the dewdrops pressed the petals down was also the path that he came from. It was still pointing to the heart of the road. Moreover, when Chu Yang sniffed the wild grass and the flower petals, the dew on them changed color imperceptibly. Then, in the blink of an eye, they returned to their original transparent state. Then this drop of dew quickly evaporated into a thin layer of mist. It rose up and mixed with the faint morning fog. As the morning breeze blew, this faint mist drifted towards the road behind Chu Yang. Slowly, as Chu Yang walked slowly, there was still a piece of morning fog on the road behind him. It seemed that Chu Yang didn't even move the fog when he walked past. However, all of this was so difficult to notice in the beautiful morning light that shrouded the entire suburb. Finally, he walked out of the town. Looking up, he saw a circle of milky morning fog rising and falling slowly on the hillside. The scenery was really dreamy. Chu Yang took a deep breath and stretched his arms. He smiled comfortably and said, "It's really beautiful and comfortable." As he stretched his arms, his two palms naturally spread out and tilted to the back. Then, a piece of light fog that couldn't be seen by the naked eye suddenly rose from his palms. The morning breeze blew gently, taking away the light fog from his palms and spreading it densely in the space behind him. Then Chu Yang seemed to be impatient and quickened his pace. Old Third Ma, who was behind him, had been paying attention to Chu Yang's every move. Seeing that Chu Yang sped up, he naturally quickened his pace as well. When Chu Yang walked to the side of a small forest, Old Third Ma was already 100 feet behind Chu Yang. Then they rushed into the fog that Chu Yang had just released. Then Old Third Ma felt that his mind suddenly seemed to be in a trance and then returned to normal. He shook his head in surprise as if he was doubting that with his cultivation, why would such a trance happen? But when he looked up, Chu Yang's body had already entered the small forest and disappeared in the morning fog. He didn't have time to think. He turned his head and looked around, but there was no one around. He sneered silently and floated into the small forest like a cloud. In the small forest, the morning fog seemed to be thicker. But this was a natural phenomenon in the morning. Old Third Ma wouldn't suspect anything else. He looked around but didn't find Chu Yang's figure. Anxious, he jumped up, stepped on the treetops and looked into the distance. But he found that Chu Yang's figure had already walked out of the small forest and was slowly turning into the small valley over there. He still had his hands behind his back, looking leisurely and elegant. Old Third Ma snorted and flew over without thinking at all. He had always been cautious. At this moment he also had doubts in his heart. He has no cultivation, how can he walk so fast? But somehow, although he suspected this, he didn't think deeply about it. He only had one thought: catch up with him. Kill him. He rushed over like a galloping horse. Old Third Ma was stunned when he turned at the entrance of the valley. In front of him, a young man in a light robe stood there leisurely with his hands behind his back and a warm smile on his face. His eyes were looking at Old Third Ma's face with a smile like spring water. The way he looked at Old Third Ma was like admiring a flower. A brilliant flower of blood. When Old Third Ma's eyes met with the young man's, he only felt that the young man's eyes turned from gentle spring water to sharp swords in an instant and shot into his eyes. Old Third Ma was shocked and suddenly felt a sharp pain in his pupils. He took a step back and his pupils shrank. He didn't expect that the young man was a top master. Caught off guard, he clearly felt that his eyes had been injured. When he looked out, his eyes were already a little blurred. Moreover, it seemed that there was a raging sword aura stirring in his eyes. Frightened, he closed his eyes and exerted his martial arts to force out the sword aura that pierced his eyes. Two thin streaks of blood fell from the corners of his closed eyes. His expression suddenly became ferocious and terrifying. When he opened his eyes, they were already red. The young man in front of him still looked worried. He looked at Old Third Ma indifferently. His clothes fluttered and swayed gently among the green grass and red flowers. There was still no trace of life in him. Old Third Ma's heart gradually sank. He found that his intelligence was seriously wrong. At this moment, he cursed Chu Feilong madly in his heart. Fuck you, is this the nephew whose cultivation was destroyed? Fuck you, even if you want to cheat me, you shouldn't cheat me like this. I don't know how much I can write today, but I will continue to write until 10 o'clock in the evening. I don't know how much I can explode today, but I really want to know how much we can catch up with today. Chapter 809. Old Third Ma's heart was as cold as ice. The young man in front of him could actually detect that he was being followed, and deliberately lured him here. He was also waiting for him to walk into the trap. It was obvious that he had a well-thought-out plan. How could he be a cripple? How could his cultivation be crippled? The other party's eyes were as sharp as swords. He stood there like an emperor in the clouds. He stood with his hands clasped behind his back. His eyes were indifferent and ruthless. He was making a merciless judgment on his life in this world. His eyes were as sharp as swords and his eyes were thunderous. This was clearly the cultivation of at least a sword emperor. At least, he was a sword emperor. Furthermore, he was a high-level sword emperor. The most terrifying thing was that he couldn't see through his cultivation even though he was a third-stage martial monarch. Old Third Ma's heart sank and an incredible thought suddenly emerged in his mind. Could it be, this is a trap that Chu Failong deliberately set up? Is it to kill me? He was about to speak, but Chu Yang had already spoken first. The latest chapter of the Holy Hall. I'm Chu Yang. You must know me, right? Chu Yang retracted the sword aura in his eyes, and his eyes became as warm as spring water. Yes. I'm here to kill you. Old Third Ma didn't want to say this, but somehow he mustered up the courage to say this. After saying this, he wanted to slap himself in the face in frustration. How could I say this? I know you're coming. Chu Yang nodded and said naturally, you're just in time. I need someone to spar with me with the sword. Your cultivation is not bad. It's not high nor low. You're very suitable for this task. You're just in time to practice with me? What is this? He knew I was coming? How did he know I was coming? At this moment, Old Third Ma's heart became inexplicably weak, and he had an impulse to run away. The next moment his heart sank even more. This was because the young man in front of him, whose cultivation was unpredictable, was suddenly emitting sword aura everywhere. The sword aura rushed to the Big Dipper. Chu Yang's entire person was standing in the midst of the sword energy. The long sword on Old Third Ma's waist suddenly popped out of the scabbard with a loud clang, without warning. It swayed gently as if it was making a pilgrimage. Old Third Ma was shocked. His opponent did not even draw his sword. Just the vibration of his aura had created the effect of 10,000 swords entangling his body. His aura had even created the presence of I am the king of 10,000 swords, causing the lifeless and spiritless sword that belonged to his enemy to assume the posture of worshipping the sovereign of its peers. He took 3 steps back. Then he pressed down on the sword hilt and forced the sword back. Then, he looked at Chu Yang with a serious expression in his eyes. He asked in an extremely serious manner, "Who are you?" The moment the opponent unsheathed his sword, Chu Yang saw the shape of the sword clearly. The sword's body was slender and long. There was a small blood groove in the middle, but it emitted the color of the night. 3 inches from the hilt of the sword was engraved with a flamboyant character. Yi. Chu Yang's heart skipped a beat. People from the Yi clan. Then he suddenly thought of the people who had besieged Chu Failing 3 days ago and what Chu Failing had said. Then he thought of Chu Failong. Who am I? Chu Yang smiled. Didn't my second uncle tell you? Old Third Ma took another step back. His eyes had become certain. Chu Failong? People from the Yi clan seem to have died. The last time was in the 3 days. What's your name again? Yuranmo? Chu Yang frowned and relaxed his brows. This time it's you. Old Third Ma felt cold all over. Of course, he knew that Yi Ranmo had led his brothers to besiege Chu Failing. Yi Wubwa had even ordered him to arrange it himself. Since Yi Ranmo and the others had left, this matter had become a mystery. He didn't expect that the truth would be revealed here. It was indeed Chu Failong's conspiracy. The Yi clan is a very scary clan. Chu Yang smiled slightly and said meaningfully. The latest chapter of the Holy Hall. Old Third Ma was thinking about the meaning of this sentence. Suddenly, a sword light flashed in front of him. Chu Yang had already unsheathed his sword. The man and the sword became one. The sword aura in the sky surged and the wind and thunder rumbled. The sword light was like a meteor, and it had already reached his throat. This sword seemed to have brought along the blood of the Dead Sea. The monstrous waves of the blood of the sea surged over, mixed with the howls and screams of hundreds of millions of aggrieved souls. The blood of the sea under the sword. Since Chu Yang had created these 4 sword moves, he had only truly exerted the peak power of these sword moves today. Old Third Ma shouted. His thoughts were in a mess. He moved his body horizontally and at the same time, unsheathed his sword. Poke, push, stab, cut and flick. After a series of clanking sounds, Old Third Ma roared. Blood suddenly splashed out from his shoulder like a fountain. But he didn't dare to treat his wound at this moment. He didn't even dare to take a look at it. Old Third Ma tried his best to stabilize his breathing rhythm as he stared at the terrifying young opponent opposite him. Cold sweat dripped down from his forehead and into his eyes. His eyes were stung by his tears, but he didn't even dare to blink. In the face of such a terrifying opponent, Old Third Ma knew that he only needed to blink once. Perhaps after this blink, he wouldn't need to blink again in his life. Chu Yang's robe fluttered elegantly. He somersaulted in the air and then stood in the air. His eyes suddenly became indifferent and ruthless. The sword in his hand shone with a bloody light, with a cruelty and indifference that could devour the world. Then the sword light whizzed up as if a sword light path had suddenly spread out in the air. The mortal world was the ruthless Tao. Old Third Ma's pupils suddenly widened. At this moment he had completely lost his desire to win. His only thought was to escape. If he couldn't escape, he was afraid that the 13th Master and the others would be completely annihilated under Chu Feilong's successive schemes. He screamed and floated up like a feather. He stabbed his sword madly. He resisted and retreated at the same time. The ruthless sword light of the mortal world was like the Milky Way pouring down from the sky. It persevered and rushed over fiercely. Old Third Ma fell to the ground from floating in the air. He retreated continuously, causing dust to fill the air. 2 deep gullies were plowed out. The bloody light flashed again and Old Third Ma's shoulder was stabbed again. 2 consecutive stabs were on his left shoulder at the same position. As the blood gushed out, horrifying white bones jumped out of the skin on Third Ma's shoulder. The 2 severed veins did not shrink back but exposed the severed head to the air as if it was cooked. His shoulder bones were broken and his veins were broken. Old Third Ma's left shoulder was crippled. Old Third Ma's eyes were filled with pain. He looked around anxiously for a way to escape. His heart and guts were already cold. If he continued to stay here, he was afraid that he would really die here. Dust flew up from the opposite side. An extremely fierce murderous intent, which was several times stronger than the previous 2 moves, rushed towards him. He only heard an indifferent and ruthless voice reciting, "Don't retract your blade after killing the entire world." The opponent's killing move was only used at this moment. Old Third Ma was terrified. He screamed desperately and waved his sword madly. Instantly, a huge white lotus flower formed by sword light bloomed, and then he pushed it out fiercely. The lotus flower of sword light bloomed suddenly. The horrifying sword aura from the opposite side rushed towards him. In this gloomy and desolate land of dust, Old Third Ma miraculously saw the opponent's indifferent, ruthless and cruel eyes, which flashed with a determined cold light. The sword light rushed through like crushing dry weeds, and the lotus flower formed by Old Third Ma's sword light suddenly exploded. Old Third Ma was scared out of his wits. He howled from his throat. Circles of sword light bloomed with defensive sword light. His body retreated rapidly at a speed faster than the speed of flowing light. But the sword light on the other side was like a huge mountain pressing down on him, crushing his rings of sword light into smithereens. The long sword shone, and the sword light on the tip of the sword was crisscrossing. The tip of the sword was pointing at his throat. It was unstoppable. Old Third Ma's heart was filled with sorrow and despair. He had no choice but to urge all his potential. In an instant he bit the tip of his tongue and spat out a mouthful of blood. He squeezed out all his vitality and injected it into the long sword in his hand. He swung it like a whirlwind. The long sword hummed and brought up a light curtain that connected the heaven and the earth. Then Old Third Ma turned the long sword into a sword light and threw it out. Then without hesitation he retreated desperately and turned around. He used the fastest speed he could do to escape desperately without thinking about anything. Before he could turn around he felt a chill on his forehead. Then he turned around and felt a chill on his left hand and right shoulder. After he ran for 300 feet he felt a cool and pleasant feeling on his back, followed by a warm and comfortable feeling. Then, with a long howl, he disappeared from the mountain path and entered the small forest from where he came. Only when he was out of the small forest did he feel pain in his back, chest, shoulders, and forehead. The vitality in his body was dissipating rapidly. A feeling called death rushed into his heart. At the last moment, Chu Yang's sword energy pierced through his forehead, creating a bloody hole in his forehead. After he turned around, 2 streams of sword energy chopped off both his arms. When he had rushed out 300 feet, he felt a warm and comfortable feeling after the pleasant coldness. However, Chu Yang's sword light had pierced through his heart from the back. His front and back were unobstructed. The blood in his body poured into the 5 internal organs, which was a temporary warm and comfortable feeling. This was perhaps the last enjoyment that the god of death gave to humans. Old Third Ma's eyes were blurred. He was in despair. He knew that he was going to die. Even if all the supreme martial artists in the world channeled all their cultivation into his body at the same time, there was absolutely no hope for him to survive. But he was not reconciled. He was not reconciled to die under the scheme of Chu Feilong, this despicable person. Moreover, there was the 13th Master and his brothers over there. They were all in danger. Even if he died, he had to bring the news back. Never in his wildest dreams would he have thought that the 18-year-old youth he was facing this time, whose cultivation was completely crippled, would actually be such a terrifying character. Chapter 8:10. This was Chu Yang's first battle in the upper three heavens. 3 moves. Old Third Ma, who was a third-stage martial monarch, had been defeated in just 3 moves. Although there were other factors, Chu Yang's cultivation had undergone an earth-shaking change compared to before. A third-stage martial monarch was an unattainable existence when Chu Yang was just a martial artist. An emperor was even a legend in the lower 3 heavens at that time. But now, a third-stage martial monarch had been defeated by him. Old Third Ma's figure disappeared like a flowing light. The flying dust slowly fell down, revealing Chu Yang's figure. Looking at the direction where Old Third Ma had disappeared, Chu Yang let out a long sigh of relief. When the dust settled, Chu Yang's body was full of wounds and bloodstains. Chu Yang gasped in pain. Looking at the wounds on his body, he swallowed the vitality spring water and applied it on his wounds. Every time he applied it, he frowned in pain. A martial monarch is indeed extraordinary. Chu Yang sighed deeply. He felt that his road ahead was more and more difficult. Although his strength had improved rapidly, he was still weak. I really don't know how many such experts Chu Failong has invited this time. Chu Yang frowned and pondered, how can I catch all of them in one fell swoop? After thinking for a long time, he still had no clue. He could only ponder and walk back slowly. In the battle just now, Chu Yang seemed to be at ease, but he knew that he had taken a big advantage. He had cleverly placed incense along the way, which had affected Old Third Ma's mind unknowingly. Although Old Third Ma's cultivation was profound and he naturally had a high resistance to such things, at least, his mind would not be as clear as before. And this was only Chu Yang's first step. For the first step, Chu Yang only asked Old Third Ma to have his mind blurred under the effect of the incense. Then, after a period of time when he felt that the incense's effect was almost there, he released a mist of dispersing martial arts. As the name implied, the mist of dispersing martial arts was a poisonous mist that could silently disperse people's martial arts. The effect of the combination of the cultivation dispersing mist and the incense would far surpass that of ordinary cultivation dispersing powder. The combination of these 2 poisonous mists was the first type of mixed poison. However, the first kind of mixed poison had caused Old Third Ma's monarch-level cultivation to drop by 1 level without him noticing it at all. Only after entering the small forest did he spread out the soul-seizing fog. The soul-seizing fog was the most overbearing poisonous fog. Its function was to erode a person's consciousness. However, if this kind of soul-seizing fog was used from the beginning, it would be easily detected, so it had to be foreshadowed with incense. The combination of the soul-seizing mist and the incense was the second type of poison. The combination of the soul-seizing fog and the cultivation-dispersing fog was the third type of poison. Poison incense, cultivation-dispersing fog, and soul-stealing fog. The combination of the 3 was a unique super-mixed poison that had never appeared in the human world for more than 80,000 years since the first master of the Calamity Sword. This kind of vicious martial art that could kill without leaving a trace was the invincible 3 steps 1 kill of the first-generation Calamity Sword master. Old Third Ma didn't notice the strange killing technique that had been extinct in the heavenly layer for 80,000 years. He took it all step by step. When Chu Yang decided to make a move, Old Third Ma's cultivation had already dropped to the first stage of the monarch level without him noticing it at all. However, he was first poisoned by the incense and then the soul-seizing fog. How could he notice it when his mind was in a mess? Then Chu Yang, who was supposed to be a powerless cripple, actually turned his eyes into sharp swords and suddenly broke out the cultivation of a sword sovereign. Old Third Ma was caught off guard and suffered a great loss, causing his vision to be impaired. Therefore, in the dust-filled sky, Chu Yang could clearly see Old Third Ma. However, Old Third Ma only had the vision of an ordinary person. How could he see Chu Yang? If he could see it, he wouldn't be so flustered. Because every time they fought, Chu Yang would be injured. At the very least, Chu Yang would be injured by his strong martial power. However, he couldn't see it. He only knew in a panic that Chu Yang wasn't injured at all. This meant that Chu Yang's cultivation was far above his. Before this, under the cover of Chu Yang's Thousand Phantom technique, he couldn't see through Chu Yang's cultivation at all. This was another preconceived idea. What he saw could only be an invincible sword sovereign. Under such psychological hints step by step, he could only have a feeling of looking up at a high mountain. Fear also followed. Slowly he was scared out of his wits and could only escape. Moreover, It also gave him a clear intuition that he had fallen into Chu Feilong's trap. This was human nature. Firstly, it was to shirk one's own responsibility. Secondly, it was to vent one's anger on others once there was an accident. Under the dual effects of the incense and the soul-seizing fog, the evil side of human nature and the fear in one's heart were stimulated. At this time, Old Third Ma had no intention to fight at all. It was equivalent to a complete defeat. Otherwise, even if Old Third Ma's martial power had decreased a lot, how could he be defeated so easily? From various aspects of confusion, from psychological warfare to actual combat, all of them were full of conspiracies and tricks. If Old Third Ma didn't lose, something strange would have happened. Everything was in his favor at the right time, the right place, and the right people, plus the indefensible mixed poison skill. Yi Wubwa held the teacup calmly and slowly tasted it. It was so quiet that even the sound of a pin dropping could be heard. If Yi Wubwa didn't open his mouth, no one dared to speak. This 13th master of the Yi clan was a well-known figure for his brutality. Among the direct descendants of the Yi clan, everyone had a high cultivation. Not only were their statuses high, but their cultivations were also outstanding. The Yi clan had their own secret techniques to raise their cultivations. Although this 13th master was one of the weaker ones, his cultivation was close to the martial saint level. Old Third Ma has been out for a day. Yi Wubwa said lightly, even if he can't break into the law enforcement hall to kill people, he should have completed his task now. Can that little bastard hide in the law enforcement hall and not come out? The sturdy middle-aged man at the side laughed and said, Old Third Ma has always liked to play cat and mouse. Now he probably doesn't know how to deal with that poor little fellow. Instantly everyone chuckled. Chu Feilong also felt that the heaviness in his heart lessened a little. If Chu Yang died like this, although it wouldn't be satisfying, but, humph, it's better to die than to live. Otherwise, I'll feel sick of seeing him every time. Yi Wubwa's eyes flashed and he said lightly, Old Third Ma has a bad temper. This is also the reason why I've always let him stay by my side and rarely let him go out alone for a task. It only takes one stab to kill someone, although it's more satisfying to torture someone, but many accidents happen during this period of time. So, you have to remember that no matter how hateful the person you want to kill is, as long as you can chop off his head at the first instant, don't hesitate. Everyone nodded simultaneously. Yi Wubwa smiled coldly and said, as long as this person dies, the culprit will be gone. Then it'll be equally satisfying to torture his family members. Chu Feilong couldn't help but shudder. Suddenly Yi Wubwa frowned and his ears moved. The other 4 people in the room were also startled. The atmosphere in the room instantly became heavy. Someone's flying towards here at high speed. Yi Wubwa frowned. It seems to be Old Third Ma, but he shouldn't be so impatient. Could it be that an accident has happened? Another old man with a goatee stood up immediately. I'll go and take a look. He's already here. At this moment, a sharp sound of something breaking through the air came from afar. It entered the restaurant with a bang, and then it kept crashing towards the direction of this private room. Everyone's expression changed at the same time. 13th Master. With a bang, Old Third Ma's blood-soaked body appeared at the door. Everyone was stunned at the moment they saw him. Both of Old Third Ma's arms were gone, and there was a deep bloody hole on his forehead. Blood mixed with milky white brain matter slowly seeped out. There was a thin bloody hole on his chest. It could be seen that it was the protrusion of the sword tip. Then there must be a big bloody hole on his back. A sword pierced through his forehead. A sword pierced through his heart. Yi Wubwa could tell at a glance that Old Third Ma was dead for sure. The reason he was able to make it back here was because he was using the method of burning his divine soul. It was not easy at all. Even so, he would die at any time. Say what you want to say. Yi Wubwa shouted. Old Third Ma finally saw the person he wanted to see. His mind relaxed and he fell down. That old man with a goatee held him in his arms, and a dense amount of mystical chi was continuously injected into his body. But he found that his meridians were completely blocked and he couldn't enter. It's useless. The old man with a goatee shook his head sadly. Old Third Ma's throat made some noises. He stared at Chu Feilong and said intermittently, 13th? Third Master Chu. Chu Feilong is a spy. The Chu Yang is a sword emperor. His voice suddenly stopped, and blood gushed out from Old Third Ma's throat crazily. His blood clots and internal organs turned into pieces and flowed out from his mouth. He opened his eyes wide in vain. He wanted to say something but he couldn't. Only strange gurgling sounds came from his throat. With a flash of sword light, old Third Ma's throat was cut off completely. The sword light in Yi Wubua's hand was sparkling like autumn water. Just now he was the one who saved old Third Ma from suffering. He killed him cleanly with a sword. The other 4 people revealed a mournful look at the same time. Yi Wubua's ghost fire-like eyes stared at the sword in his hand. He lowered his head and suddenly sneered. Chu Feilong was scared out of his wits. He knelt down. 13th Master. I'm wronged? Wronged? Yi Wubua smiled faintly. He stared at the sword with his ghostly fire-like eyes and laughed softly. Old Third Ma exchanged his life for this information. How can it be fake? I'll continue to work hard. Aunt Feng had returned home from work and was cooking. Begging for votes, please satisfy my vanity as a man. Let Sister Feng see our strength. I have already bragged in front of her. If I can't get out of this embarrassing situation, then I won't be able to listen to my husband's orders. So, I'm shouting myself hoarse begging for votes. Chapter 8:11. The other 4 also looked coldly at Chu Feilong's face. The room was filled with an intense killing intent. Chu Feilong, who had been their brother for so many years, died so tragically in front of them. The hatred and anger of the 4 could no longer be contained. At this moment they needed to vent. They needed to take revenge. Obviously, once Yi Wubua had confirmed Chu Feilong's identity as a spy, Chu Feilong wouldn't be able to walk out of this room alive even if he had 10,000 lives. Cold sweat dripped down Chu Feilong's face. He felt that the killing intent was getting more and more intense, as if his head would fly away from his house in the next moment. In a hurry he shouted, 13th Master, there's a misunderstanding. Think about it, I've been loyal to you for the past 20 years. When have I done anything to disappoint you? Even if I'm really a spy, there's no need to wait for 20 years to take action at this sensitive period, right? Yi Wubua said coldly, you must have a big plan after enduring for so many years. But his tone had become slightly gentler. Chu Feilong said anxiously, besides, that Chu Yang is only a bastard who was left behind in the lower 3 heavens. What ability does he have to cultivate to the level of a sword emperor? 13th Master, it's not possible for an ordinary sword emperor to injure old Third Ma severely and kill him. This sword emperor should be at least a 9th grade sword emperor close to the monarch level. He took a breath and endured the panic in his heart. He said, even if this little bastard is from a big clan like the Yi clan, it's impossible for him to cultivate to the level of a sword emperor at the age of 18. 13th Master, you must be clear about this. Yi Wubua was really pondering this time. Yes, even his eldest nephew Yi Kanmeng, who was recognized as the #1 genius in the heavens and the #1 Grand Duke of the Yi clan, broke through to the level of a first-grade sword emperor at the age of 22. At that time this news even shocked the big clans. An abandoned child who grew up in the lower 3 heavens could actually cultivate to the level of a sword emperor who could kill old Third Ma, who was a 3rd-grade martial monarch at the age of 18? Even Yi Wubua himself didn't believe in this matter. But could the news that old Third Ma sent back at the risk of his life be a lie? The other few people still looked at Chu Feilong with suspicion and murderous intent. Templar, I need an explanation for this matter. Yi Wubua looked at Chu Feilong coldly. I want to see this Chu Yang. Chu Feilong agreed repeatedly. Only then did he wipe off the cold sweat on his head. He only felt that his clothes were drenched in cold sweat at this moment. Then she became worried. That little bastard Chu Yang, how can I command him? Not to mention asking him to meet Yi Wubua. Yi Wubua lowered his eyes that were like will-o-the-wisps. He looked at the scarlet blood on the sword. That was old Third Ma's life. The lives of his loyal subordinates who had followed him for so many years. He was buried here just like that. Chu Feilong, don't you have any suspicions? In the entire southeast region, apart from the Shao family and the law enforcers, who else could make old Third Ma unable to escape? As for the Shao clan and the enforcers, they did not dare to act rashly against the Yi clan. Even if he wanted to take action, he would deal with the most important and core figures of the Yi family. What was the big deal about killing old Third Ma? Was he looking for trouble by alerting the enemy? If it weren't for your nephew, how could Third Ma have died? If he wasn't the one who did it, then it must be someone else. You're just a nephew who just came back. How could you have a monarch-level expert following you around all the time? Wasn't this a joke? This kind of thing was impossible in the Yi clan. Then there was only one explanation. Chu Yang had already prepared for this. Why did he prepare for this? Chu Feilong. How could you get away with this? As long as he could see Chu Yang, the truth would be revealed. Seeing that Chu Failong was in a dilemma, Yi Wubwa added another sentence sinisterly, I don't care what means you use. You have to bring Chu Yang to me within 3 days. If I don't see Chu Yang within 3 days, then you, Chu Failong, have to make arrangements for your funeral on the next night. Yi Wubwa's will, the wisp's eyes flickered. The atmosphere in the room was stiff and cold. Chu Failong's whole body was covered in cold sweat again. He bowed and said, yes. 13th Master, don't worry. Even if I have to risk my life, I'll bring Chu Yang, that little bastard, to you. Yi Wubwa snorted. He turned his wrist, and his long sword silently returned to its sheath. He glanced at Chu Failong from the corner of his eyes coldly. Net. After a long time, Yi Wubwa got up gently and came to the side of Third Ma's corpse. He stretched out his hand and gently touched Third Ma's cold face. He said softly, Third Ma, I'll avenge you. You have to believe me. As long as I find the murderer, no matter who he is and no matter what he has done for me, I'll let him die. He said the following 3 words word by word, full of murderous intent. As his hand touched Third Ma's face, Third Ma's round eyes suddenly closed peacefully. At the side, Chu Failong felt a chill in his heart and shuddered. Take Third Ma's corpse and let's go. Yi Wubwa walked to the door and stopped. With his back facing Chu Failong, he said slowly, Chu Failong, I'll be here 3 days later waiting to kill you. Or kill Chu Yang. Then his figure flashed and disappeared strangely. The other 4 people also walked out. The elder with a goatee silently carried Third Ma's corpse and walked out without saying a word. None of them looked at Chu Failong. Even the martial monarch level guard that the Yi clan had sent to protect Chu Failong also walked out without looking back. Chu Failong stood stiffly in the room. He only felt that his mind was in a mess. Yi Wubwa is still suspicious of me. And he's very suspicious of me. He actually has the intention to kill me. That last sentence was obviously referring to me. After so many years of hard work, did I end up with such an ending? At this moment, Chu Failong's heart was suddenly filled with endless resentment. Yisher-san, don't tell me that I, Chu Failong, am just a dispensable character in your eyes? You want to kill me just because of old Third Ma, who is just a follower of yours. And you want to kill me so unjustly? Chu Yang. It's all your fault, you little bastard. Ever since you came, I, Chu Failong, have been surrounded by endless troubles. Endless crises. If I don't kill you, I can't even establish myself in the Chu clan. If I don't kill you, I can't gain Yi Wubwa's trust. Chu Yang. If I don't kill you, I'm not a human. As Chu Yang walked all the way back, the sword spirit in the tribulation space was already a little agitated. Because the sword spirit only remembered now that Chu Yang had broken through the bottleneck to become a sword sovereign. Why are you a sword sovereign? Why can you break through to become a sword sovereign? The sword spirit was puzzled. After witnessing the battle between Chu Yang and Third Ma, the sword spirit was sure. Although there was sword aura when Chu Yang broke through previously, the sword spirit didn't think much about it because Chu Yang had always used swords as his main weapon. But before this battle, the momentum that made all swords submit to him was real. The sword spirit was extremely puzzled. Why can't I break through to become a sword sovereign? Compared to the sword spirit's astonishment, Chu Yang was also extremely puzzled. The sword spirit cried, it's impossible for a sword sovereign to appear during the process of upgrading. You can only become an emperor, a martial emperor. No tribulation sword master has ever become a sword sovereign. So what? Chu Yang was puzzled, others can't but it doesn't mean I can't. Or maybe they have some other kind of cultivation base. The sword spirit shook his head resolutely, absolutely impossible. You're definitely abnormal. Chu Yang, why? Isn't the sword sovereign level to respect the tribulation sword? Why can't the tribulation sword master become a sword sovereign? The sword spirit said, the master who created the tribulation sword strictly stipulated that because of the tribulation sword, there would be a sword sovereign. But the sword sovereign isn't the tribulation sword master but the tribulation sword. So, everyone who uses swords in the world can reach this level as long as they cultivate hard. Only the tribulation sword master can't. Chu Yang was stunned. What kind of logic is this? The sword spirit said, back then the master left a message to warn about this. He said, the tribulation sword wants to sink and the sword is the emperor. He commands all the swords in the world and fights the wind and clouds alone. If the sword master can't be obtained, the sword master must not be separated. This goes against the way of the heavens, and misfortunes and blessings will attract one's own attention. The meaning behind this is that if the Tribulation Sword Master becomes a sword sovereign, he will be in conflict with the Tribulation Sword, the Emperor of the Tribulation Sword. This goes against the way of the heavens. So, no Tribulation Sword Master in history has ever become a sword sovereign. Chu Yang laughed. So what if I become a sword sovereign? Since my debut, what has not been against the way of the heavens? So what if I go against the way of the heavens again? The sword spirit was stunned, speechless at how open-minded this guy was. Chu Yang said, besides, the last sentence is misfortunes and blessings will attract one's own attention. There's not only misfortune but also blessings. If others can't, why can't I? This is simply ridiculous. If it's a misfortune, I'll bear it. If it's a blessing, I'll accept it. Since I've already become a sword sovereign, can I destroy my own cultivation? He laughed out loud and threw this matter to the back of his mind. Then he walked back with large strides. The sword spirit was silent for a long time in the tribulation space. Finally he murmured, since this guy became the Tribulation Sword Master, when has he encountered the same thing as the other sword masters? Or am I looking for trouble for myself? Finally he stopped talking. When Chu Yang returned to the purple crystal's Huichen Hall, the sun had already risen. Endless rays of sunlight followed his figure and entered the purple crystal's Huichen Hall. What made him feel strange was that Chu Le, the servant who usually sat at the door and waited for him, was not present this time. When he went in, it turned out that the inside was actually full of people. He didn't know any of these people, but he could tell that there were many experts among them. These people were all dressed in yellow robes. At a glance, it was a sea of yellow flowers. I just had a meal, so this chapter is a little late. I will continue to write, but there's definitely less than one chapter left, so I'll update at 4 today. Yes, if everyone's monthly votes are good enough for me to look good in front of my wife, I'll continue to explode tomorrow. I'll do what I say. Speaking of which, when I was eating just now, I crossed my legs and shouted, what meal? What dish? Fuck. Don't you know that I don't like to eat? Are you done? Why aren't you done? Why are you so lazy? Do you want to be beaten up? After eating, I waved my hand, hurry up and clean up. If you don't listen to me, I'll beat you up. Come, don't wash the dishes first. Brew me a pot of tea first. Bring it over. Hurry up. Then I'll sit here and happily write my story. Yes, actually, I'll just talk about these things here. Everyone knows that I'm the one who has the final say in my family. Everyone, leave some face for my wife and don't tell anyone else. Those who know my wife's phone number must be careful. Yes, you must be careful. A woman's face is important. Don't tell her about this. Chapter 8:12. Chu Fian had been wandering outside the Blood Payers Hall these few days, waiting for the news of the elixirs. In a crowd of people in yellow, Chu Le, who was dressed in emerald green, was serving the guests on behalf of Chu Fian. The first person was a yellow-clothed youth. On his chest area, there was actually a golden dragon embroidered with a golden light. However, even though this fellow was sitting down, it could be seen that he was thin and long like a bamboo pole. Furthermore, it was a bamboo pole that was suffering from jaundice. Chu Yang dared to bet that he would admit defeat if he could get 5 kilograms of flesh after dismembering this guy. This young man's hair was actually yellow with some green in between. Chu Yang didn't know what kind of physique he had to be able to turn his hair into such a yellowish-green withered grass. Chu Yang suddenly realized, it's autumn. This guy's 2 eye sockets were sunken, and his cheekbones were high. His cheeks were sunken, and he looked like a tuberculosis ghost who had been drinking too much. If he appeared at night with such an appearance, he would definitely be scared out of his wits. He looked like a skeleton that had just crawled out of his grave. At this moment, this skeleton-like guy had a reserved look on his face. He tilted his head in what he thought was a graceful manner. His fingers, which were like withered bamboos, were actually tapping on the table in a leisurely and elegant manner. He had an expression on his face that said, I'm very handsome, I'm very confident, I'm very elegant, I'm very graceful. The 8 people behind him were all looking up at the sky with their hands crossed in front of their chests. Their actions were neat and uniform. Who are these people? Chu Yang stepped in and his face darkened. What are they doing? Chu Le hurriedly came over and whispered, Big brother, they're from the Huang clan. Huang clan? Chu Yang said, so they're from the Huang clan. A Huang clan, which clan is it? Chu Le was speechless. This Huang clan is a big clan that's second only to the Shao clan in the whole southeast region. Big brother actually doesn't know about it? At this moment, the young man in yellow was still sitting on the chair casually. He turned around and sized up Chu Yang. Then he sneered and actually stretched out his finger to pick his nose. Then he flicked his nose with his long fingernail. With a click, a lump of booger was flicked to the ground. He actually put on a reserved and fake smile. This must be Divine Dr. Chu, right? My surname is Huang. I know your surname is Huang. I'm asking why you're here. Chu Yang frowned. He tilted his head and looked at Huang Gong. Then he looked at the pile of boogers on the ground. His face became gloomy. Seeing that Chu Yang was not polite enough to him, Duke Huang's face changed. Then he seemed to have thought of something and endured it. He crossed his legs and said, I'm here to see Divine Dr. Chu. If I wanted to pick up girls, I wouldn't have come here. Ah. As he spoke, he actually thought that what he said was very humorous. He actually squinted his eyes and laughed out loud. I can't. Chu Yang waved his hand. I'm not in a good mood now. I won't treat any illness. Duke Huang, please find someone else. Not in a good mood? What? Duke Huang asked in surprise. My mood is extremely bad when I see this thing. I've forgotten all my medical skills and medicine. Chu Yang raised his head and pointed at the pile of boogers on the ground with his foot. He said in disgust, I'm a clean freak. Duke Huang was stunned. He squinted his eyes and sized up Chu Yang for a long time. Then he said carefully, You don't know who I am? Before Chu Yang could speak, Duke Huang laughed out loud. He was overjoyed. You actually don't know who I am? Ah. So there's someone in the southeast who doesn't know me. Chu Yang frowned and sat down on the counter. There was really no stool left. Looking at the complacent Duke Huang, Chu Yang asked lightly, You're the Dharma Supreme of the law enforcement officers? Duke Huang was stunned and hurriedly shook his head. No. He couldn't admit this. Chu Yang asked, Then you're the Valley Master of the Medicine Valley? Duke Huang was stunned again and said, No. He still couldn't admit this. St. Hall. Chu Yang asked again, Then you're the #1 blood payer in the world, Wei Wuyan? Duke Huang said angrily, Even more so. Fuck, if I admit it, won't Wei Wuyan skin me alive? He's someone who even dares to provoke the big clans. Chu Yang asked, Then which clan master of the big clans are you from? Duke Huang said dejectedly, No. Chu Yang snorted, Then why do I need to know who you are? Isn't your surname Huang? Why haven't I heard of anyone surnamed Huang in the big clans? Duke Huang said angrily, Although our Huang clan isn't a big clan, it's not much inferior to that clan. At least it's stronger than your Chu clan. Chu Yang said in surprise, We're talking about your Huang clan now. Why are you dragging our Chu clan into this? If you really want to compare, why don't you compare with the commoners? Wouldn't that give you a greater sense of achievement and pride? Duke Huang was furious. What do you mean? Chu Yang waved his hand listlessly. What I mean is, send the guest off. You can go wherever it's cool and stay there. I'm a divine doctor who goes up the mountain to catch tigers. I don't sting monkeys, don't serve monkeys. Duke Huang stood up from the chair and rushed angrily to the counter where Chu Yang was sitting. His two skinny hands grabbed the counter tightly and he yelled, Fuck! You dare to look down on me, Huang Xiaoyou. You actually look down on me, Huang Xiaoyou. Chu Yang's face was full of black lines. Huang Xiaoyou. This is really a good name. I really don't know who gave him this name. Chu Lur, who was originally worried, couldn't help but laugh out loud at this moment. The 8 experts of the Huang clan were all speechless. They raised their heads and looked at the ceiling. There's really no other way. This name of young master is really, too, like that. I don't care whether you're Huang Xiaoyou or Huang Xiaoyou. Divine Dr. Chu said, I don't care what illness you have. Anyway, I can't cure you. Please leave quickly. He paused for a while and said, The Yin fire in your body is burning your heart and your kidneys are dry. You don't have more than 1 or 2 years left to live. You'd better go back home and prepare a coffin. Upon hearing this, the white-bearded elder behind Huang Xiaoyou widened his eyes and looked at Chu Yang with a face full of surprise. This young man actually saw the root of my illness at one glance? He didn't even feel my pulse. Huang Xiaoyou was dumbfounded. He stared and said, Fuck? There's actually such a scoundrel in this world. He's even more troublesome than my master. Before he finished his words, the white-haired old man behind him had already coughed violently and interrupted him. He walked to Chu Yang and said with a face full of smiles, Divine Dr. Chu. My young man is young and impetuous, please don't take it to heart. But my young master has been sick for several years. We've traveled all over the world, but even the Medicine Valley can't do anything about it. Divine Dr. Chu, please give us a big helping hand and take a look at my young master. Our Huang clan will definitely not forget your kindness. As a big clan, when had the Huang clan ever been so humble to anyone? But this person in front of them was obviously a troublesome person who wouldn't be moved by force or persuasion. And he was a troublesome person with unique skills. The Huang clan was the only descendant of the Huang clan, and he had contracted such a strange illness. This was a matter that concerned the continuation of the Huang clan's bloodline. They had finally seen a glimmer of hope and found a peerless divine doctor. If they were to offend this person, the clan head would definitely not blame the young master for offending this person, but they would definitely be in trouble. Chu Yang raised his head and looked at this white-haired old man. He saw that this person was at least a monarch-level expert. But he had lowered himself to beg for help for this youngster. Chu Yang's heart moved and he said, "Then you all stand aside. Let your father come to me." The white-bearded elder was overjoyed. "Thank you, Divine Dr. Chu." He turned around and whispered a few words in Huang Xiaoyou's ear. After pushing him over, the remaining 7 people stood up at the same time and stood up obediently. Chu Yang asked them to stand. But at this moment, who dared to sit down? What if they angered the divine doctor and he didn't treat their young master anymore? Who could bear this crime? Huang Xiaoyou stood in front of Chu Yang and didn't dare to be arrogant anymore. He stretched out one hand to let Chu Yang feel his pulse. But he was still dissatisfied and nagged. "This? Divine Dr. Chu. You have to pay attention to what you say. I'm Huang Xiaoyou, and I have a nickname called Master of the Chaotic World. My name is Xia Lu. Xia is in the sunset, Lu is in the willow tree. It's a willow tree that stands gracefully in the land of the endless gorgeous sunset. It's not the despicable, shameless and despicable Lu, and it's definitely not Huang Lu. You've misheard my name." As he was talking, Chu Yang had already raised his head and looked at him in surprise. "You actually have such a problem. You're impotent? You're impotent? In other words, you're impotent?" Huang Xiaoyou's face instantly turned red and he roared, "Fuck! Can you lower your voice? Out of the 3 types, 1 type is enough to explain the problem, but you actually repeated 3 types. You. But the eyes of the white-bearded elder behind Huang Xiaoyou lit up. His white beard trembled as he said, Right. Huang Xiaoyou wailed, "Don't say that. I'm a man. I also want my face." Chu Yang frowned. He grabbed his hand and said, "This young master of yours seems to be overflowing with yin energy. His meridians are blocked and his kidneys are overdrawn. If other doctors were to examine him, I'm afraid it would be obvious that he's overindulging in debauchery." Huang Xiaoyou flew into a rage and shouted, "Nonsense! You quacks, I'm still a virgin." Chu Yang rolled his eyes and looked at him. "Why are you shouting? Sit down obediently. Did I say that you're not a virgin?" Huang Xiaoyou said angrily, "You said that I'm overindulging. Since I'm overindulging, am I still a virgin?" Chu Yang glared at him. Then he shouted like a bolt from the blue, "Sit properly, you motherfucker. If you shout again, I won't let you take a look." Chu Yang was so aggressive that Huang Xiaoyou immediately became depressed. "You win. All of you come over. I'll ask about your condition." Chu Yang stared and slammed the table. The few experts of the Huang clan looked at each other and walked over. Chapter 8:13. Your young master has this problem for 8 years, right? Chu Yang snorted. Question strange pop-up window, yes. We only realized that something was wrong 4 years ago. Then after checking we knew that the root cause of the problem was very long. The white-bearded elder replied. He's only in his 20s this year, right? Chu Yang snorted, that is to say, ever since. Speaking till here, he suddenly turned his head. You can't listen to these and you can't understand them. Go back to your room to rest. Chu Lur was listening with interest. Upon hearing that, she stood up unhappily and walked out. As she walked out, she muttered, "Isn't it just becoming a eunuch? Humph, you think I can't understand?" Huang Xiaoyou almost shed tears of grief and indignation. "Little girl, you're infuriating me to death. I'm an excellent man, excellent your head." Chu Yang slapped his little head unreservedly. "You're already impotent, what's there to be excellent about?" Huang Xiaoyou was filled with grief. "I also don't want to." Chu Yang sighed and no longer paid attention to this seemingly arrogant but actually immature young master. He said to the white-bearded elder, "Your young master's illness. Although it seems that his body has been hollowed out due to excessive indulgence, in fact, it's not because of excessive indulgence." The white-bearded elder was surprised. What? This question was actually out of shock. Many doctors had been found, but all of them insisted that he was impotent due to excessive indulgence. Only the high priest of the Medicine Valley said, "This illness has nothing to do with lust, but I can't do anything about it." Now Chiang said it out just by taking his pulse. How could he not be overjoyed? Huang Xiaoyou's eyes were brimming with tears. All these years he had been beaten up by his father many times. He always blamed himself for indulging in lust without self-control. He had been wronged for so many years. Now someone finally spoke up for him. What? Huang Xiaoyou choked with sobs. He was injured, or perhaps he was ambushed. Moreover, it had happened a long time ago. At that time he hadn't reached, cough cough. In other words, he hadn't reached the point where he could use it. But he had already been set up. And this method is known to be incurable in Chongtian, Chu Yang sighed. What technique? The white-bearded old man asked nervously. Chu Yang said with a heavy face, Yang severing yin hand. The white-bearded old man's expression changed drastically. The Yang severing yin hand was indeed infamous in the Chongtian 8,000 years ago. Even though it hadn't appeared in the Chongtian for 8,000 years, it still made people pale when they talked about it. This was because the Yang severing yin hand was the most sinister martial art in the world. It had another name and it was even more famous. It was the Grand Severing Hand. This martial art was specifically used to damage a person's reproductive system. Once it was used, there would be no treatment for the rest of one's life. Men couldn't be masculine and women couldn't raise their children. This extremely sinister and evil martial art was created by a fellow named Sa Wufei 8,000 years ago. This Sa Wufei was known as the Heavenly Lord of Severance. He was an eunuch, and the long period of repression had caused him to become psychopathic. After he achieved success in martial arts, he racked his brains to create this evil martial art, specifically turning men into eunuchs and women into stone women. Sa Wufei's thought was, what I can't do, no one in the world can do. Later, Sa Wufei aroused public anger. Countless experts besieged him and he was killed. His Grand Severing Hand also disappeared from the martial world. But he didn't expect that it would appear again 8,000 years later. Yet, it just had to appear on the body of the only remaining young master in his family. The white-bearded old man and the others were all extremely furious. They were shocked and infuriated. Divine Dr. Chu, do you mean that my young master had been attacked when he was 12 or 13 years old? The white-bearded old man's face was as cold as frost, and he asked in a low voice. There's no doubt about it. Chu Yang said lightly. Then he turned his head and asked Huang Xiaoyou, have you never gotten up? Huang Xiaoyou hung his head dejectedly. Yes, I've had this for 20 years. Besides peeing, I haven't done anything else. For so many years it's like a ball of soft snot. I only knew about it when my family started to find a wife for me 2 years ago. Damn it, I just lay on it and there's no reaction at all. Stop. Chu Yang was speechless and he waved his hand to interrupt him. Then he pondered for a while and asked, you don't have any brothers, right? Huang Xiaoyou was startled. How do you know? Then he said, I used to have 2 brothers, but they died before I could remember anything. Chu Yang laughed. Then is your Huang clan very powerful? Chu Yang really didn't know much about the Huang clan. The white-bearded old man's face was solemn, and his eyes were even gloomier. He understood the meaning of Chu Yang's question. These few words might contain an earth-shattering conspiracy. The white-bearded old man said slowly, our Huang clan has been in the upper 3 heavens for 2,000 years. We rose gradually from a weak clan, and reached our peak 700 years ago. We were almost on par with the Shao clan at that time. The Shao clan wanted to destroy us countless times, but they never succeeded. The Shao clan was one of the dominant clans in the upper 3 heavens. Even with the Shao clan's strength, they couldn't do anything to the Huang clan. But when the white-bearded old man said this, he didn't sound arrogant at all. Instead, he was full of worries and thoughts. And then? Chu Yang asked, has the clan declined now? It's not that the Huang family has declined. It's just that in the past 300 to 400 years, accidents have been happening to the direct descendants of the Huang family. Later on, even the side branches had accidents one after another. Slowly, although the Huang family's foundation is big, the core Huang family has been withering away. As the white-bearded old man said till here, his face became more and more ugly and he said, now the young master is the only surviving direct descendant of the Huang clan. But he's also under the art of severing posterity. Then the white-bearded old man looked at Chu Yang and asked hopefully, Divine Dr. Chu, can you cure this illness? Chu Yang pondered. Huang Xiaoyou's illness was different from that of Xia Xinliang and the others. This illness was real and not fake at all. It wasn't very difficult for Chu Yang to cure it, because he had many rare elixirs in his hands. But the problem was that divine Dr. Chu still wanted to get some other benefits. He frowned and pondered. Everyone thought that he was thinking about the illness, but no one knew that this guy had already thought of 40 to 50 vicious schemes in this short period of time. Cure. Chu Yang took in a breath of cold air and slowly exhaled. After everyone's hearts were in their throats, he said, "It can be cured," but, hearing that he could cure it, the Huang clan members were overjoyed. But when they heard the word, "but," their hearts were in their throats again. But this kind of injury has been around for a long time, and it has become a chronic illness. Plus, this martial art is vicious and ferocious. It's really difficult to cure it completely. Chu Yang sighed. As long as it can be cured, no matter how difficult it is, no matter what price we have to pay, our Huang clan can afford it. We're also willing to pay. The white-bearded old man's eyes were full of tears, as if he had suddenly grabbed a life-saving straw when he was drowning. In heaven, everyone knew the importance of a force. The Huang family was now on the verge of extinction. Once that happened, the monkeys would scatter. Everyone would have no roots. Seeking refuge with other forces would be akin to leaving home halfway. It would be tantamount to lodging under a fence. The taste would be too unpleasant. If they didn't seek refuge, they would inevitably be nibbled away, killed, and exiled. As long as the Huang family's bloodline was still there would still be cohesion. No matter how much of a debauchee he was, at least the flag would still be raised. If it was erected, there would be a backbone. When 1,000 people gathered together, they were a force that no one dared to ignore. But when 1,000 people were separated, there would be 1,000 targets. Even a wild dog would dare to bite you. This was one of the reasons why clans were so loyal in the era of cold weapons. Because this was a main route. If the main route was broken, where would the branches go? This was the reason. So, regarding the illness of Huang Xiaoyou, the only remaining young master of the Huang clan, not only the Huang clan was anxious, but the subordinates and experts of the Huang clan were also very anxious. Now they finally saw a glimmer of hope in the land of infinite despair. How would the Huang clan miss this chance? That was an opportunity that he would rather die than miss. This period of time will be very long. Chu Yang sighed and said, "Moreover, I have to focus on the treatment every day. At all times, I have to let him be under my eyes. As the sun rises in the east and sets in the west, the jade rabbit rises and falls. Every day there will be a different qi circulation to concoct the medicine." Chu Yang stared at the white-bearded old man and said, "You're all martial experts. You definitely know more about the flow of qi and blood in the body than Jianghu. You should know that the rise and fall of the sun and moon, morning and evening, the flow of qi and blood in the body is different, right?" Divine Dr. Chu is right. This is indeed different, the white-bearded old man said. So, I need to adjust the flow of qi and blood at every moment for the treatment. Chu Yang said solemnly, "You can imagine how complicated and troublesome this treatment will be." The white-bearded old man sighed, "That's indeed the case. And there's a prerequisite. Your young master Bai Shao has to be completely cooperative and obedient. But from the looks of it, your young master isn't someone who knows his place. Young master will definitely be obedient." The white-bearded old man promised hurriedly. "He's obedient, but I'm not willing to." Chu Yang curled his lips and said, "Do you know how much I earn in a day? Do you know that I can't do most of the other things when he's sick? Do you know how much I'll lose? Do you know how many rare medicines I need? Do you know the price of these elixirs? Moreover, if he's a stunning beauty, it's nothing. But unfortunately, he's a tuberculosis patient with jaundice. His saliva is flying everywhere, his breath stinks, and his snot is flying everywhere. Yao Yao has to do a close examination on him. And I'm a clean freak. If it were you, wouldn't you be disgusted?" To be continued. Chapter 8:14. The white-bearded elder frowned and said awkwardly, "Then tell me, what should we do?" He thought that it was really difficult for divine Dr. Chu to do this. It's also possible to cure him completely, but we have to make a 10-point agreement. Chu Yang said. "No pop-up window 10-point agreement?" The 8 experts of the Huang clan felt a little dizzy. Normally there were only 3 points of agreement. Why did it become 10 points? First, Huang Xiaoyou must be obedient. If I tell him to go east, he can't go west. If I tell him to hit a dog, he can't chase a chicken. If I tell him to take off his pants, he can't pull off his clothes. He must completely obey my instructions. If he's disobedient, I'll stop the treatment at any time, Chu Yang shouted. Then if you tell me to go east and I can't go west, can I go north? Huang Xiaoyou pouted. Get out. Damn it. I don't want to see any more. I don't want to see any more. You'll be a virgin until you die. Chu Yang raised his eyebrows and shouted as he pointed his finger at the door. The Huang clan's members hurriedly apologized. After a long time, they finally appeased this bad-tempered divine Dr. Chu. But he still pointed at Huang Xiaoyou's nose. If you dare to say no to me again, you'll get lost immediately. Huang Xiaoyou kept quiet out of fear. His arrogance when he first came in had long disappeared. Second, during the treatment period, the Huang clan has to be responsible for my losses. I don't want much. You can inquire about my daily income. If you can't be responsible, I'll stop the treatment at any time. Chu Yang squinted his eyes and said unwillingly. That's what I should do, the white-bearded elder nodded repeatedly. Third, if the Huang clan is still worried, you can send guards here. But other than ensuring Huang Xiaoyou's safety, they have to listen to my instructions. If they're disobedient, I can stop the treatment at any time, Chu Yang said. That's what I should do. The white-bearded elder nodded repeatedly. Since I'm here, who else can I listen to? Fourth, the Huang clan has to provide the required medicinal herbs. Chu Yang said lightly, and a touch of worry appeared between his eyebrows. This isn't an additional condition. I'm afraid that the Chu clan can't get the medicinal herbs that Mr. Huang needs. So, if you can't get them or don't agree, you can stop the treatment at any time. Of course. The white-bearded old man nodded affirmatively. Fifth, don't cause trouble. Otherwise I can. First, you are not allowed to be rude to my family. This can be terminated at any time. Seventh, this matter must be kept strictly confidential. Chu Yang's voice became serious as he said, I'm afraid that this matter is a power struggle between your big clans. If this news were to spread, I would never have a day of peace here. Once it's leaked out, I'll stop it at any time. At that time it won't be me stopping it but someone else stopping me. He looked at the white-bearded old man with a deep gaze and sighed, You should know how big of a risk I've taken by accepting Huang Xiaoyou. The white-bearded elder sighed and said, Divine Dr. Chu is right. Who knows how many dangers there are? Chu Yang said, So, the eighth rule is that you have to be responsible for the safety of me and my family. We can't sacrifice our family for you. Otherwise, the treatment can be terminated at any time. The white-bearded old man nodded heavily. After I go back and report to the clan master, I'll definitely give Divine Dr. Chu a clear answer. Ninth rule, you have to protect my safety even more. Otherwise, the treatment can be terminated at any time. Chu Yang pretended to be sanctimonious. He kept saying that the treatment could be terminated at any time, which made the white-bearded old man feel helpless. And I want an affirmative answer, not a clear answer, Chu Yang said. Of course, how could he not lower his head when he was under Chu Yang's roof? What's the 10th rule? Huang Xiaoyou asked curiously when he saw Chu Yang stop after saying the first rule. I haven't thought of the 10th rule yet. It'll depend on your performance in the future. If there's anything that's not good, I'll add it at any time. Chu Yang rolled his eyes. Huang Xiaoyou hurriedly lowered his head. Anyway, you have the final say, right? Chu Yang said with great interest. Why don't you have the final say instead? No. You're the big brother. Big brother Chu. Huang Xiaoyou bowed and raised his head and said flatteringly, Big brother, you're so wise and handsome. You're so handsome that you can hold back 10,000 men. You've done so many good deeds for the world, but you've never left your name behind. You're really a first-class person in the world. This Duke Huang was really a talent. He knew how to adapt to the circumstances. Seeing that his fate was sealed, he immediately changed his tone and started to flatter Chu Yang crazily. The flattery in his words, the flattery in his expression, and the servile manner in which he bowed and bent his knees made everyone's jaws drop. Especially the experts of the Huang clan, they were even more dumbfounded. Fuck, I've watched young master grow up. I really didn't expect him to have such a side to him. He's really smooth and slick. Don't flatter me. Chu Yang wasn't moved at all. He said, Go now and wash yourself clean. Comb your hair, clean your teeth, change your clothes, and be an attendant in the Purple Crystal's Huichen Hall. Huang Xiaoyou exclaimed, Big brother, I don't have to be so miserable? Then please go back. Chu Yang rolled his eyes. I'll go, okay. Huang Xiaoyou felt very wronged. Well, help me brew a pot of tea, clean the medical hall and wipe the advertisements outside. Chu Yang crossed his legs. Huang Xiaoyou's face turned bitter. Divine Dr. Chu. How confident are you? The white-bearded elder asked cautiously. If you find the herbs, I'll be 100% confident. Chu Yang smiled slightly. I'll gradually nurse his body and consolidate his kidney water so that it won't be lost. When you find the herbs, he'll be cured immediately. Great. The white-bearded elder said excitedly. What herbs do you need? Chu Yang pondered for a while and said, to cure this disease, we need to fight poison with poison. And it must be absolute poison to attack the insidious power of the art of severing grandchildren. The amount of poison must be large enough to be equal to it. Of course, we also need some herbs that can prolong his life at any time. That's right. The white-bearded elder nodded repeatedly. So, for this disease we need absolute vine water of no life and life pangolin. These are the 10 herbs. The last one is poisonous dagger point iron cucumber. Chu Yang instructed. The first 3 herbs are the most poisonous of poisons and they must be used. And the last one, poisonous dagger point iron cucumber, is the main ingredient. Once it's missing, the whole set of herbs will be useless. The white-bearded elder frowned. The absolute vine water of no life and life pangolin are indeed the most poisonous of poisons. But this poisonous dagger point iron cucumber is too vicious? That's a torture instrument. Although it's highly poisonous, I've never heard of it being used as medicine. Chu Yang sternly said, you don't know about this. This is a torture tool used since ancient times to deal with adulterers. But no one knows that the iron cucumber contains a large amount of traction water. If you want to cure the art of severing grandchildren, you must use this knife tip to pierce the iron cucumber. The white-bearded elder nodded repeatedly and was suddenly enlightened. I see. It's really, the world is full of wonders. Remember, you must get these herbs within half a year. Otherwise, I'll have to rearrange the supplements for his blood circulation every day. You must know that the 4 seasons are a big cycle for the blood circulation in his body. The white-bearded old man nodded repeatedly. Then he carefully put away Chu Yang's prescription. Then he bade farewell to Chu Yang and left the 4 elders to guard Huang Xiaoyou. He led the 4 elders back to report to the clan master and prepare to look for elixirs. Before leaving, Huang Xiaoyou hugged the white-bearded elder's thigh with tears and snot and cried loudly, "Third granduncle, you must find the elixirs as soon as possible. Tell my father not to feel sorry for the purple crystals." How am I going to spend the next half a year? Seeing the 4 elders of the Huang clan leave, Chu Yang arranged for the other 4 elders to stay in the backyard. Then he kicked Huang Xiaoyou's butt. Stand up. Huang Xiaoyou stood up while trembling. Chen, what? Chu Yang squinted his eyes. Little one, if you don't want to be a eunuch forever, be more honest. I'm not interested in correcting your problems. Now, I'm going to ask you a question. You have to answer truthfully. Huang Xiaoyou said humbly, "Boss, please ask." He quickly moved a stool over and said politely, "Boss, please sit." "I'll just stand." Chu Yang sat down on the stool unceremoniously. "Do you know who did this to you?" "I don't know." Huang Xiaoyou shook his head blankly. Then he gritted his teeth. "If I knew, wouldn't I have dismembered that bastard into pieces long ago?" "You're right," Chu Yang asked again. "Then who's the biggest enemy of your Huang clan?" "It should be the Shao clan." Huang Xiaoyou said with uncertainty. "The Shao clan has always been guarding against us taking over their position. But these years we didn't really fight with each other." Chu Yang frowned. "What about the other enemies?" "Others? Waha in the whole southeast region who dares to go against our Huang clan." Huang Xiaoyou laughed complacently. Halfway through his laughter, he saw Chu Yang rolling his eyes and looking at him. He suddenly remembered that he shouldn't be arrogant. So he immediately stopped and said timidly, "Boss of course is an exception. That's not bad. Shao clan. Shao clan." Chu Yang quickly conversed with the sword spirit in the space. Slapping his thigh, he finally said, "I remember the legend. Back then, among the experts who besieged the Venerable of Severance, Sa Wufei, the leader seemed to be someone surnamed Shao. Or perhaps, among the main experts there was someone surnamed Shao. I can't remember this legend clearly." Huang Xiaoyou was instantly furious. He gritted his teeth. "I'll go back and check on this matter." Chu Yang nodded indifferently. Then he casually said, "I'm just saying. That's all. You don't have to take it to heart." It seemed that he didn't know that because of Huang Xiaoyou's illness, and because the Huang clan was about to have no descendants, all the Huang clan had been repressed to the point where they were about to explode. His casual words had caused such a bloody storm, As a matter of fact, Chu Yang didn't lie. Back then, among the two people who besieged Sa Wufei, one was surnamed Yi and the other was surnamed Xiao. To be continued? Chapter 8:15. Book 7 Chapter 11 The Tragic Duke Huanggong. There was one less person beside Huang Xiaoyou now. Duke Huang almost went crazy and sent people to investigate what had happened that year. With the power of the Huang clan, it wouldn't take much time to investigate such things that were clearly recorded. Divine Dr. Chu also started to treat Duke Huang. He carefully prepared medicine. He used a whole caddy of Coptis chinensis, 1, 5 caddy of bitter bamboo roots, 2, 5 caddy of bitter cauliflower, 1, 5 caddy of golden castor beans and finally 2, 5 caddy of snow cliff bitter gourd. Then he threw in a small stock of raging blood ginseng and brewed a big pot of decoction. The decoction that Divine Dr. Chu brewed for Duke Huang was as yellow as a latrine after the rain. It weighed a total of 15 caddies. After the decoction was finished, a drop of Lust Dragon's blood was dripped in to dilute the decoction. 3 meals a day, 2 bowls each time. There's a total of 5 bowls and each bowl weighs half a caddy. After 5 days we'll prepare for the next course of treatment. Chu Yang frowned and looked at Huang Xiaoyou. Huang Xiaoyou's legs trembled when he saw the big pot. His calves were cramping. He took up the bowl and drank a mouthful. He only felt an indescribable bitter taste rushing into his stomach. In an instant, his stomach felt like it was filled with ice and fire. Coptis, bitter bamboo root, silver root bitter cauliflower, golden castor bean, and snow cliff bitter gourd were all things that were used to reduce internal heat. They were all things that were cold and bitter. When they were gathered together, it was the culmination of all bitter tastes since ancient times. And it was also extremely relieving internal heat. But raging blood ginseng was relieving internal heat. After eating it, one would feel hot all over and sweat profusely. The rarest thing was that this raging blood ginseng was also bitter. All these things had no effect on the treatment of Duke Huang's illness. Apart from the bitterness that made one wish they were dead, there wasn't even the slightest bit of medicinal properties left. The only thing that was useful was a drop of Lust Dragon's blood. But only God knew how much effect a drop of Lust Dragon's blood would have after being melted in this big pot of decoction. This was purely because Divine Dr. Chu didn't like Huang Xiaoyou's name, appearance and living habits, so he came up with this idea to torment him. Who told this bastard to not only be impolite when he saw me, he even threw a bucket full of snot. Of course it wasn't just punishment. Divine Dr. Chu's purpose was, the power of the Huang clan isn't small. And it's a feud with the Xiao clan? If Huang Xiaoyou were to stay here, wouldn't it be equivalent to having a group of super bodyguards? A capable fighter? Since Chu Feilong was able to invite that person to kill him, it proved that the Yi clan had definitely come to the southeast. As long as the Yi clan sent people, how could they be simple? Although Sword Master Chu thought highly of himself and had the sword spirit as his trump card, he wasn't so arrogant to think that he was invincible. After all, the sword spirit's strength was limited by him, and it could only exert a little bit of its power. It would be no laughing matter if a high-level martial saint were to come and destroy his physical body. Moreover, this incident seemed to be another fuse. Could the heavens... God knows what had been going through Divine Dr. Chu's mind these few days. As for these medicines, after drinking these medicines, although Duke Huang's condition would be slightly improved, and there would be absolutely no harm to his life and health, taking these medicines every day was definitely tantamount to going to hell more than 10 times every day. Duke Huang plucked up his courage and took a sip. Instantly, his face twisted into an extremely weird shape. His nose was almost crooked to his ears, and his eyes were raised high. Then, silently, 2 streams of yellow soup rushed out from his nostrils. Drip, 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 he fell to the ground with a thud. For a full 15 minutes, he couldn't breathe and was directly suffocated. She only regained her senses after a quarter of an hour. She took a deep breath and started to cry, "Mommy, mommy, mommy, mommy." His tears gushed out like a broken dam. The 3 guards of the Huang clan rushed out like a whirlwind. "What are you crying for?" Chu Yang was furious. "I've painstakingly refined these medicines for you. Why are you crying?" "Is this a medicine?" Huang Xiaoyou pointed at the big pot painfully. "What the hell is this?" "It's bitter, it's as bitter as something." He wanted to say that it was even more bitter than gold thread, but he immediately remembered that the bitterness of gold thread and this medicine were simply worlds apart. As he cried, he vomited. Chu Yang sighed and looked at the 3 guards. "This duke of yours has never suffered any hardship since he was young?" A black-faced guard smiled and said, "Divine Doctor, you're right. Our Duke. After all, he's the only son of our Huang clan. It's human nature for Madam to spoil him a little, but how can I treat him like this?" Divine Dr. Chu frowned and shook his head repeatedly. "Look, he's become like this after drinking a mouthful of medicine." The three guards were also helpless as they begged, "Godly doctor, can you make this medicinal soup sweeter?" Chu Yang was furious. "Good medicine is bitter, good medicine is bitter. It's all honey, of course it's good to drink, but can it treat illnesses? If he can't even drink the medicine, how can he treat illnesses?" Divine Dr. Chu was furious. "The medicine is here. 1 bowl a day, 2 bowls at a time. This is enough for 5 days. I'll leave it to you. If I see him vomiting another drop of medicine, you can bring him back." After saying that, Divine Dr. Chu left angrily. The remaining 4 people of the Huang clan looked at each other. The black-faced guard gathered his courage and scooped a bowl of medicine for Huang Xiaoyou. "Duke? You can drink it? I won't drink it even if you beat me to death." Huang Xiaoyou's face was full of tears. He shouted angrily, "Is this a medicine? Damn it, even feces doesn't taste so bad. Is this a fucking treatment? This is obviously murder." The 3 guards' faces immediately darkened. Feeling helpless, they advised, "Sir, this good medicine tastes bitter. You try a mouthful?" Huang Xiaoyou squinted. "You'll know. Is it really so bitter?" The black-faced guard drank a mouthful of the tea in a dubious manner. Suddenly, his black face turned snow white, and his facial features twisted into a pile. He rolled his eyes for a long time before swallowing the tea. He felt as if the 10,000-year-old ice in his stomach and the fury of a volcano were colliding together. At this moment he wanted to cut his own throat. After a while, he still said against his will, "This doesn't seem to be very bitter. Duke, for the sake of treating illnesses, you can drink it." Huang Xiaoyou only shook his head. The 3 guards looked at each other and walked to one side to discuss. "What if Duke doesn't drink it?" "Pour it." "Yes." The 3 guards walked back. "Duke, drink it?" Huang Xiaoyou was extremely indignant. "I won't drink it even if I die." The 3 guards signaled each other with their eyes. They rushed forward and held Huang Xiaoyou down. One controlled his body, one opened his mouth, and the other poured the medicine into his mouth. The one who opened his mouth tapped on Huang Xiaoyou's throat and chest. Then Huang Xiaoyou involuntarily poured the medicine into his stomach. Another bowl of it. Then one of them still controlled Huang Xiaoyou tightly, while the other 2 rubbed his stomach and chest. They used their spiritual power to circulate all his meridians and blood vessels, so that the medicine could be spread to his limbs and bones as soon as possible. Huang Xiaoyou couldn't move at all. His eyes rolled back and his mouth opened. His face had turned into the color of a dead person. His throat kept making ha ha sounds. When the 3 guards finally released their hands, Huang Xiaoyou jumped up and desperately used his fingers to dig his throat, wanting to spit out the medicine. But no matter what, he couldn't spit it out at all. The 3 monarch-level experts had helped him to clear his digestion. Now all the medicine had already been absorbed into his limbs and bones. How could he spit it out? Duke Huang sat down on the ground. He was heartbroken and disheartened. "I won't treat it anymore. I won't treat it anymore. So be it if the Huang clan has no more descendants." The 3 guards were shocked. "That won't do." They looked at each other and thought, "We have to prevent Duke from running away at any time. This is a good idea. Looks like we'll do it this way in the future." Divine Dr. Chu appeared out of nowhere. He smiled amiably. When Huang Xiaoyou saw him, it was as if he had seen a ghost. He screamed and jumped up, hiding behind the black-faced guard. His teeth chattered. "Demon, remember to use this method in the future. You have to be on guard at any time." "Well, if your Duke escapes by himself, you can't blame me," Chu Yang said lightly. "You have to know that the medicine can't be stopped. Once it's stopped, all the previous efforts will be wasted." The 3 experts agreed respectfully. They swore secretly, "Even if I don't sleep or rest, I have to take care of my Duke and not let him run away. I have to make sure that he doesn't miss a single drop of medicine. And this is only for 5 days. After 5 days you can't use this anymore. You have to start the 2nd course of treatment. And you have to find the medicine for the 2nd course of treatment yourselves. But these few courses of treatment are only for consolidating the meridians. It's not hard to find them." Chu Yang frowned. "Divine Doctor, please tell us." The 3 experts agreed at the same time. "Well, the 2nd course of treatment requires some small poisons. One of you can go and find them. 15 grams of centipede whiskers, 15 tongues of 5-step snakes, 100 pairs of white-bellied bat eyes, 3,000 legs of centipedes, 50 tails of swamp lizards, 15 grams of fly wings, 10 cores of ice poison-type spiritual beasts, 3 stalks of corpse Ganoderma. Chu Yang listed out more than 10 kinds of medicines as if he was familiar with them. He solemnly instructed, "You must find them all within 4 days." "No problem." The black-faced guard heaved a sigh of relief and patted his chest. "Leave it to me." At one side, Huang Xiaoyou had already foamed at the mouth and almost fainted when he heard the names of these medicinal herbs. What are these things? So, from then on, Huang Xiaoyou lived a dark life in the Purple Crystal's Huichen Hall. The guards of the Huang clan were all experts. They were naturally not fools. The next day, the black-faced guard went out to find the medicine. He conveniently brought a small cup of the medicine that Huang Xiaoyou was drinking now, begging for monthly votes. "Seeing that I'm going to be raped again, brothers and sisters, please support me." You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.